is up to YouTube? Welcome to the Nickatina Show. We have a great show lined up for you today. And with some great guests as well. The guest of honor today is none other than Robert Meyer Burnett. You know him from the John Campea Show, from Collider, from a long, illustrious career that he's had. He's going to be here today on the show to answer your questions and to talk about some cool movie topics as well. Along with Robert Meyer Burnett, we're also going to have my good friend Zod Rider will be here as well. And, of course, because it is the Nickatina Show, we have none other than my good friend right here, Mr. R2D2. What's up, R2? I'm excited about it. I know. Robert's here. Can you believe that? I know. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay, guys, without further ado, let's invite our other guests of the day. The man that counts the most, my good friend, Mr. ACS Universe, Anthony Sherfield.
It's fire.
What's up, man?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yes, sir. Let's get it. Let me see.
Yeah. Look what I have created.
And guys, let's see the fire chat or the fire emojis in the chat for Anthony and from the Nickatina Show. Let's get it going, you guys. First of all, let's check on the chat itself. We got a lot of cool people here today. We have DC Extended. What's going on? He's bringing the fire.
Yes,
and there is that fire from DC. We got Sickness in the house.
Let's go, Sickness.
What is up, Sickness? Jesse Allen is here as well. Will be a good show. I believe that you are right. It's going to be a great show today. What up, bro? Yo, it's going to be dope. ACS Universe promoting himself on the show.
Hey.
Yeah. We also got Mel Siggy in the house. What's up, girl?
What's good?
Yep, I'm on mobile today, so he's on his mobile phone today. Let's see who else is here. We got Rashnan, Mick, my man. Okay, well, right on. Close enough, Rashnan. He's here every day, so it's all good. Who else is here today? We got Gavin Cooley here in the house as well. What up, Nickatina? Naman is here. What's up, Nick? We also got Brian Hill, Master of None. What is up, dude? He says, what's up, guys?
None. What's good?
And more fire. Nickatina and Anthony, fire. Niner Life is here as well. Mr. Nick, what's going on, buddy? Ernest H, he's here as well. Amshri, what's up, Amshri? We got Neon Sci-Fi. Yo, guys, what's going on, Neon?
What's good, Neon?
So, guys, we have Robert Meyer Burnett on the show, and this guy is a phenomenal person, and he's a wealth of knowledge beyond your imagination. Okay, if this was Lord of the Rings, he is our Gandalf. And without further ado, well, actually, let's do something real quick. What's this? Today is going to be awesome. Yes, it is going to be awesome. Very, very awesome. Let's see. Before we go any further than this, let's also give thanks and appreciation to the patrons of the Nickatina Show, which is none other than Dr. Fate, who is a VIP Patreon. You can call me Joker, Zod Rider, who will be joining us today on the show, and Gavin Cooley. You guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. If you want to become a Patreon, the link is down below in the description, along with links on where to find Robert Meyer Burnett, Zod Rider, and, of course, ACS Universe as well. So, guys, thank you so much, and thank you for being here as well. So, without further ado, let's get the other comment out of here real quick. There we go. Without further ado, let's invite our guest of the day, which is none other than Robert Meyer Burnett. What's going on, man?
Everything is going on, and it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I very much appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you for being here. And let's also invite our other guest as well, Zod Rider.
Okay, glad to be here.
To quote Almost Famous, it's all happening.
It's all happening right now as well. And guys, put down some fire emojis for Rob Meyer Burnett and for Zod Rider for being here, you guys.
Let's see
this is going to be a phenomenal show.
We see some fire out there.
Oh, they're already.
All the fire, yes.
It's all fire.
Rashdan also writes, I also can't wait for the Man of Steel watch party. Yes, so this Friday on the Nickatina Show's Midnight Run, we'll be doing a Man of Steel watch party, which that will be a lot of fun, and that will follow up next week with a BBS watch party as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Anthony might be joining us as well for that Man of Steel watch party.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe. Gavin Cooley writes, Robert, how's it going?
It's going well. You know, I was just thinking I just reopened again my Man of Steel Henry Cavill Superman hot toy.
Yes.
But I would get it, but I can't because I can see it, but
Yeah.
it's across the room.
And guys, I'm telling you, when you have a studio set up, when something's across the room, it's over. Just to get up and get the headphones and get out, it's just,
I know.
And most of us have a very tight quarters. It looks like I have a lot of space, but like I'm like right up against the stuff.
Yeah.
If you guys saw the other side of the room, you'd be like, man, where are you?
I'm kind of that way too.
Well,
I'm in a corner.
at least you're not in your laboratory. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not like our other friend, and I'm not sitting in the laboratory. Which reminds me too. I don't know why I'm going to bring this up, but you just reminded me of it. So we have my brother-in-law staying with us, and I don't know what happened, but the toilet got clogged and it was overflowing. But luckily, it was just water, so it wasn't anything in there. It was a horrible experience this morning, and that's what I had to deal with when I woke up this morning. But moving on to more positive things. Very nice, Robert Meyer Burnett. Right on. That's Brian, Master of None.
Yes.
Mike Bodden. # free the toys.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that I did free some of the toys. My beautiful 7 Samurai action figures
Nice.
right here from
I
the
didn't
early
even know
aughts.
they made 7 Samurai
Well,
action figures.
wow,
Rob.
they did?
There is there was, I don't think it still exists. There was a Japanese company called Affleck, and they specialized in making samurai action figures. And they made like a Zatoichi and a Yojimbo, and they made Ito Agami, Lone Wolf and Cub, and his son Daigoro, which I have. But they made the 7 Samurai, and they all came in one box, and they were ridiculously expensive. And I found them on consignment at a comic store in LA called Meltdown for half off what they would normally cost. And they're like, I literally, it was one of those things where I freaked out. I yelped in the comic book store. I was like, oh my God, and I out loud, embarrassingly so. And I took the box and I went to the counter. I'm like, I will be back in 9 minutes. And they thought I was nuts. But so they've been packed away for like 6 years, and I've just been reorganizing the observatory in here. And I'm like, oh, it's time. It's time they come out of the box. So
Yes.
There they are, freeing the toys. And there's also in the back, you can't really, the tallest figure right there, that's actually a bootleg Tom Cruise, Nathan Algren from The Last Samurai as well. So I had to put them there too. So
Nice.
yes, Mike Bodden says free the toys. I am freeing the toys. I'm freeing the hot toys. I don't know how I'm going to free my Hulkbuster though.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go. It's just too damn big. There's so many toys. There's so many toys I have to free. I just don't have all the space to put them.
Yeah. I feel you on that one.
Well, according to Jesse Allen, who runs the Cut Air account, he says, sorry, guys, but Rob wins the personal collection in his background. So I guess you have the bigger collection. And I agree.
I'm older though. So I've got the advantage of age. I'm closer to death than all of you. So
we got
What's
Matt
up,
from
Matt?
Lightcast here in the
What's up,
chat. Hey,
Matt?
guys. We got Hugo Allen Stevens here in the chat
What's
as
up,
well. Here early for once. Yeah, it's good to see you, Hugo. And thanks for being here, especially. Mike Bodden writes, I believe that's a life-size model of Tom Cruise on that shelf. Just saying.
You're terrible.
Yeah.
You're terrible, Muriel.
There goes my stuff. I just smacked it.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't
Nickatina,
take
what
my
you
phone
doing?
out. I smacked the counter. I told you I'm closer than you think. Hold on, I gotta try to fix this.
There's every time I see something about the Snyder cut, there is a company out of the Netherlands, and it's a father-son company called Jazz Inc. It's JAZZINC, and they basically make 6-scale dioramas.
Wow.
And they're incredible. And they just put out their Justice League Batmobile, and it's like $1,200. It's 6 scale, and you can get it all lights up, and it's amazing. And I'm like, I can't quite justify spending that much money on the
Justify the Justice League.
it's just it's too much. I mean, I may have put a deposit down on their 1966 6-scale Batmobile from the Batman TV series from the 60s.
Very nice.
I will not confirm or deny that, but it comes out, it's great because you just pay these things off in little increments and then they show up like after they have like a 12-month program where you pay stuff off because they're not going to make it. It hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
So they're incredible. They make Star Wars dioramas. They're just unbelievable. But they're also doing Batman's Batcave. Like
wow,
like the whole thing that where he sits at, it's unbelievable. So they're fans of the Snyder Cut and Zack Snyder's vision of Batman over there. They're making a bat symbol that lights up, a 6-scale bat symbol. It's unbelievable. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but they're awesome.
It sounds really cool though.
Everybody should go to Jazz Inc. Just
go to Jazz Inc. You guys do it after the show.
and by the way, if you want to buy something from them, mention my name because I'm hoping one day they might hook me up with a discount or something because it ain't cheap.
We'll make sure.
Yeah. The Robservatory discount.
The Robservatory. Yes.
Observatory.
I mean, they're incredible stuff. They did a if I can just wax Rhapsodic for a moment, it's sold out. You can't get it anymore. But they did an interior of the Death Star that came with a 35-inch. Yes, there you go.
See, hold on.
By the way, that Millennium Falcon cockpit, again, I may or may not have been paying that off over the last year. Just saying, maybe.
Right there, yeah, there it is.
There it is. That is 6th scale. So that's the Hot Toys. Look at that. The gantry from Empire Strikes Back. That is 6th scale too. So keep in mind, these are 6 scales. So these things are huge.
Yeah.
They're huge. You know what? I may or may not own that piece.
Look at that. It's sold out.
I may or may not. You have to buy that stuff. And they did just announce the rest of it. So you can get the entire cargo hold set. It's like a whole set. But see, if you don't jump on this stuff, then it's gone. Because they only
it's gone.
Yeah.
How do I even find just the products? I guess
the figures, you gotta decide what figures you want to put there, right?
Oh, here,
yeah, I mean, it doesn't come with the figures, but look at that. That thing. And by the way, there's even if I don't buy their stuff, I always look up like unboxing or review videos just to salivate. I watch Jazz Inc. review videos the way some people watch Pornhub. I'm just saying.
Well, he fits in there too. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, this thing is huge. I mean, how cool is that? Come on,
that's pretty awesome.
Incredible. Wow,
it's incredible.
I might have to get that. Probably not, but I'd want to.
and they make them with lights and everything. The quality is amazing. It's amazing. And,
look at that. You can adjust the gun. See, look, it's going straight, and now it's looking at us like, boom. What do you want?
No, they do an incredible. Their Millennium Falcon cockpit for 6-scale figures. It fits 4 figures. It lights up. It's unbelievable. And they're doing a 6-scale snow speeder from Empire Strikes Back. Just insane. Now this is now turned into commercial.
Here we go. Look at this. This is incredible. I didn't know this existed.
Look at the Emperor's throne room. Look at wow.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. Like one of the big they have them in various. You can buy they have budget versions. And then what you want is their deluxe stuff.
Robert, they need to do the Bridge of the Enterprise. That's what they need to do.
Deluxe. Look at the bat.
And if they did it, there's the bat symbol. That's the Snyder bat symbol.
Yeah, it is. Look at that. That's so cool.
How cool is that?
Robert, this has taken over the show, and I love it.
Well, you had me on here because I mean, you want me to. When people ask me, "Are you really as much of a geek as you appear to be?" The answer is yes. Yes, I am. Nice. And this kind of stuff. I mean, what I love about the world that we live in is this is just a father and son that started making these things. And these are like full on, their deluxe versions are full on movie sets just in 6th scale.
Well, let's see. Products. There's that one which is life size. My computer's
And
freaking
apparently
out there we go.
they do 12th. You know, everybody collects 12th scale figures like the Star Wars Black series. Like there's that Batmobile. And yeah, that's the 66 Batmobile.
That you may or may not have put.
I may or may not be paying that off slowly over a 12-month period of time. Yes,
I may. Pay deposit. Wow, or pay in full. They give you that many options.
Yeah, the pay in
They're
full.
Like, we know that you got to pay this off.
Yeah. The pay and the great thing about them is they're still designing these things. So it'll all have lights. It's just that I grew up with the 66 Batmobile, and I have the Hot Toys 66 Batman figures of Batman and Robin. So I already have them. So Hot Toys was actually going to make this, and they ended up not making it. So you can't. How can I not want that?
That's incredible. Look at that. That's just so cool.
And it's huge too. I mean, think of it in 6 scale. So that's got to be.
I bet the back of it lights up.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
If they were really cool, they'd make a real flame shoot out the back. Maybe I'll modify mine.
Oh, so this was the Justice Mobile Bat version.
Well, that version has no lights in it. So you can buy it without electronics,
and this is the one. Okay,
that's the DX version. Yeah. Now look at the Millennium Falcon cockpit.
Where's that? Right here.
Yeah, it's right there. Look at the one, the DX. Yeah, but look at the DX version. If you look at the lights, man, unbelievable. Check that out. I mean, that thing is huge.
Well, Robert, I remember as a kid having a Millennium Falcon that opened up into a huge play set that looked beautiful on the inside. Mm-hmm. You could sit the figures, and the attention to detail was phenomenal.
Look at the chairs. The seats are dirty, and I love it.
Yeah, and the chairs are fabric. They're fabric as well.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at this Han.
Oh wow, old Han.
And it you can have old Han, young Han. I mean, I don't know why anybody would put. They're sullying that with
BB-8.
But look at that. That's how big it is. So that's what you get, and it's on
that's massive.
And in the stand, it's got the electronics in it, so the lights up and it has sound effects and a remote. But look at how cool that is.
Wow. So could you actually put that cockpit in like a Millennium Falcon model? Like just if you want.
I mean, it would be huge. Hot Toys did make a full 6 scale Millennium Falcon that they were taking to conventions a couple of years ago. I mean, it was gigantic. Because that thing is that's got to be close. I mean, if you figure each one of those figures is a foot tall, so that thing's got to be 4 feet long, maybe? Yeah.
Dude, yes, yeah.
I mean, look at that.
Look at Chewie.
Yeah, and those are all Hot Toys figures. I have all those figures. So I didn't mean to. I've completely derailed your agenda for this evening. I apologize.
R2. Okay, I know you're excited. We all are excited. Okay.
Isn't that great though? Come on.
No, it's fucking fire.
I mean, these guys, and the thing is, they're like these unassuming Dutch dudes, like a father and son. They're like the nicest guys in the world. And I started tweeting about them like years ago, but I'd never bought anything from them. And when I finally look at that snowspeeder.
Oh wow! Look at the Batcave,
dude, that shit. Look at that.
That's from BBS.
See, now that is phenomenal. Check that out.
I mean, can you believe that they made that?
Look at that. They're like, this is how big it is, guys.
Because they designed it so that the only thing that touches the floor besides the people's feet, besides Bruce and Alfred's feet, are the chairs. Everything else is just suspended from the ceiling. Oh, that's fire.
How cool! And the thing is, they make all that stuff light up, so all those screens will actually.
They need to make a Zack Snyder action figure so we can act out the making of the Snyder cut. Check that out.
I don't even. It's just too much.
Can you believe that? I mean,
it's great.
I mean, how can you? Now, I didn't order that. But the more I look at it, the more I'm like, I got to get my YouTube revenue up.
Oh man,
okay,
seriously.
I mean, I don't know what I would do with it. Like one of those things is big enough. I don't know where you start buying all that stuff.
Goodness,
you would need an entire wall for that.
Oh yeah.
So you could.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, like the gantry from Empire Strikes Back where Luke gets his arm cut off. They have it so you can mount it to a wall, like bolt it into the wall. I mean, if I owned my house instead of rented, I would do that. I would bolt that shit into the wall and just have a room where you'd walk in and you could just make Star Wars movies with 6 scale figures would be better than Robot Chicken. You know?
Oh yeah,
Robot Chicken.
Because why not?
Exactly,
Yes.
man. That is just, you know what that is?
It's fire.
You know what's interesting though? It's like that. The funny thing is Hot Toys was going to make those things, but they can't. I guess they're too cost prohibitive for how much they cost. So these guys are totally unlicensed, but nobody would ever buy a license to make those things.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Nobody would license that because they can't. You could never make money. I mean, two dudes making them could, but otherwise you could never.
But do you have hope for the Enterprise bridge? Because I'm telling you, that would be phenomenal, wouldn't it?
That would be. I have the 6 scale captain's chair. QMX made that, and it's really cool.
Wow.
It lights up, and it has. I have actually Khan Noonien Singh, my figure of Khan from Space Seed, sitting in it. But the problem is, they haven't even made QMX. Only made Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Khan. They're supposed to have a Scotty come out. They're supposed to have Sulu, and I guess Chekhov, and you need a Uhura to come out. But that's I think the problem. And the Enterprise, there are people that have made 6 scale Enterprise bridges, and I would love to have that, but I don't like. You would really need a huge room where you could display it. But that would be a dream. I mean, that would be amazing. The bigger, and the thing is, people always ask me, Rob, what's the fascination with the toys and the 6 scale figures? And I always explain that when I was a kid growing up, all of the licensed toys, the Star Wars toys, Star Trek toys, they were all terrible. They didn't look right.
All small.
They were small, and the colors.
Detail.
Like when I got the first Kenner TIE Fighter, right? I'm like, why is it white? Why isn't that cool, like blue gray color, that dark?
Yeah.
Why and why are the wings too stubby? And it used to annoy me. I'm like 10 years old. I get the TIE Fighter. And I open it up. My mom had to find it. My mom and Jimmy Fiddler, another friend of mine, Jimmy Fiddler's mom and my mom would search because we didn't have like a Toys R Us around us. So they would search for these toys. And when they would find them, it would be victory for my mom. And then my mom would bring it home and she would watch me open the TIE Fighter. And then I would look at it and go, why can't it look like it's supposed to look? And my mom would get annoyed. Like, well, I think you're being too demanding. I'm like, no, Mom, it doesn't look right.
You wanted to paint it yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, and you would. And like, I would have to go get like the Estes model rocket, the flying model rocket of the TIE Fighter. If you just, the TIE Fighter part, and then the rocket would stick into the back of the TIE Fighter, so the TIE Fighter would just be the wings. So I would buy like 4 TIE Fighter model rockets and throw the model rocket part away and just keep the TIE Fighter part. And my mom's like, we paid good money for that. Why are you throwing it away? And I'm like, Mom, I just want the TIE Fighter because it looks right. It's got the right proportions.
Yeah, it's the right proportions, exactly.
My mom thought I was out of my mind.
It makes a big difference, especially back in the day when we played with toys. I use my imagination and play with toys for hours. And these days,
these days it's all video games for kids.
And TV as well. I don't know how many times I tell my son or my 2 boys, they go, we want to watch TV. No, let's go play with our toys. Let's go use our imaginations because it's important.
But I gotta tell you though, like I have my 1/72 fine molds Millennium Falcon that I spent like 3 months painting. It's one of those things because it's the Falcon. There's so much to paint on it. Yeah. And I have it because as a kid, I always wanted a screen accurate model of the Falcon, and the MPC model was not screen accurate. But I think to myself, if I have like Star Wars Squadrons, if I got a video game where I can actually play photorealistic versions of the Falcon or an X-Wing or a TIE Fighter, I don't know if I would need a model. Because model kits when I was a kid, they didn't have video games like that. So when you'd hold it up and that's how your imagination worked. But nowadays, shit, man, give me some Battlefront 2. What's up?
Oh, man. The games these days are so intense and they're so incredible. The graphics. Yeah. Those are literally your toys because you're just this is it,
And I feel I betray my age and I'm like, look, the 7 Samurai. People are like, I don't even know what that is. The Kurosawa movie. People are like, what? God, it's black and white. I've never watched that shit. Black and 7 Samurai. What? But
7 Samurai is phenomenal film.
Oh, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. But people are like, oh, wait a minute. That's black and white. Nah, I'll pass.
People are really gonna be shocked when Zack Snyder gives us a black and white cut of the Snyder cut.
Is he going to do that?
That would be fantastic. I hope he does.
I hope so.
You know,
I hope he does, and he might do that as well. We
George
just don't
Miller
know.
did with Mad Max Fury Road. You can get the black and
Yeah,
white
it was
version.
fire, too.
And
Yeah.
Frank Darabont did that with The Mist. His version of The Mist. You can
Yeah.
get a black and white version of that too.
And obviously, there's the Logan version from
because
James
the
Mangold
right.
as well.
because the Mad Max in black and white, I think it's even better than it is in color, black and chrome.
Oh,
It's incredible.
It's
Like
incredible.
it fits
That-
the movie so much better.
Yeah.
Mad Max
Also-
Fury Road was incredible, and I remember when I saw the movie, I remember just being completely blown away by the scale
Yeah.
of the film
Yeah.
and the practical effects they used in the film as well. I mean, everything was just such a huge scale, and I immediately fell in love with it. I mean, I'm saying minutes into it, I was like, this is the real deal. Like, this is
Rob, speaking of epic films, Rob, I got to ask you, did you ever get a chance to check out Akira in 4K?
I did. I'm a little torn. I'm a little torn. I mean, a lot of it looks incredible, but some of it's a little weird, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, I like my Blu-ray better, unfortunately.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's great to see it in 4K. I just don't know about some of the mastering they did on it. I mean,
Right.
I love Akira so much, and it's great to get. I can't believe that movie's 32 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, Akira is
amazing.
32 years old.
And it's
Isn't
still
that crazy?
It still has the best animation to date.
Yeah.
Hey, but you know what though?
compared to anything.
There are a lot of movies that are that old, if not older, and that I forget even how old they really are. I mean, even movies that came out in the 80s.
Timeless.
Movies that came out in the 80s and 90s. To me, it feels like it came out just maybe 10 years ago. Really came out like 20 to 30 years ago. It's insane. It's absolutely insane how fast time goes.
I
especially
mean,
when it comes to
Akira and
movies.
Die Hard both came out in '88.
Yeah. And Die Hard is an incredible movie. I love that movie.
Oh man, I love me.
And it looks, I mean, it's interesting because that movie was shot by Jan de Bont, who later directed movies like Speed.
Mm-hmm.
Jan de Bont worked a lot with Paul Verhoeven. They both came out of Holland. But the way Jan de Bont shot Die Hard, the way it looks in terms of its widescreen photography and its use of filters and gels and movies don't look like that anymore.
They don't. They don't at all.
Yeah, and you look like John McTiernan. We talk about McTiernan, but Predator, Die Hard, and Hunt for October, which he made in basically from '87 to 1990. We don't have anybody that makes movies with that kind of composition and that kind of of cinematography. It's just it's not like that anymore, and it's a bummer.
And now it seems like films like such as Predator, if they would do them now, it's more. It just seems it's more of like a meat market where they're just trying to get the big explosions, the big special effects, and get it out to you. It doesn't have that artistic appeal to it. And speaking of Die Hard, this is one of my favorite scenes.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Look at this. Here's my Blu-ray collection that comes in a Nakatomi tower.
Oh,
that is
wow.
fire.
That is badass.
Isn't that great?
Hold on.
It opens up on the back, and
Well,
the actual the discs are in the back here.
Oh,
Yo.
So
God.
yeah.
That is incredible.
I mean, I'm a sucker for crazy Blu-ray packaging, and I'm redoing my whole physical media collection. Well, actually, the A's through the H's. I have a new shelf that I put up, so I was moving this around. But I mean,
It's like an NBA trophy you're holding up there.
I know, right? It's like when Hans Gruber goes, "Oh, that's beautiful. I used to make models when I was a boy."
Yeah.
Speaking of gimmicky packaging, did you get the Shout Factory version of the Swimmer that came out? Did you pre-order that?
No, I have the old version that Kino Lorber put out.
Okay,
Like the one that I already have. Is there? I didn't realize there was a gimmicky version of it.
Yeah, they put out a limited edition packaging version. They basically with new documentary and a bunch of different stuff.
Oh, I'll have to get that. I mean, yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't know about that one.
I didn't
though,
know, but
Rob.
the Swimmers, that's a good one. By the way, nice get for you on that one. That's a lot of people don't know that movie. So
that movie's fantastic.
it is fantastic. Burt Lancaster, it's crazy, that movie. You know what came out yesterday was Shout Factory's Scream Factory's ultimate box set of the Friday the 13th movies.
I watched
wow.
I was watching an unboxing of that, and I was
Bruh.
salivating. I'm like, that set looks fantastic. It's a
I
little
know.
expensive though.
You know what's funny about
It is, but it's got like 14 discs in it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I mean, that whole collection went on for a long time. I remember as a kid, I remember watching those. I mean, I would not let my kids watch these now. Let me tell you. But as a kid, I used to watch, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, when they're 8, then you can.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But I mean, just the amount of gore and I guess you could say violence in it. I mean, it's incredible, but it's done really well, and they're absolutely great films.
Yeah, well, you said Nightmare. That's
Nightmare.
different than Friday the 13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th is different.
Yeah,
That's
but
Jason.
it's the Friday the 13th box set that came out yesterday.
Yeah,
okay.
it's huge. It's like a brick. It looks
Yeah.
like it's so heavy. It's got that. Now that's got to weigh about 20 pounds.
It looks huge, but I'm telling you, the greatest piece of, and I'm a sucker for physical media, but
Yes.
I don't buy everything, but the one thing that I've wanted my entire life, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, is the original Dawn of the Dead.
Mhm.
And the problem with Dawn of the Dead is that Richard Rubenstein, who controls the rights, he produced the film, has never allowed Dawn of the Dead. He's never allowed anybody the actual access to the negative to go back and really do a proper 4K transfer.
Wow.
Like, for instance, this, I'll be buried with this. This is my Japanese laser disc set.
Wow.
Of the director's
that.
cut of Dawn of the Dead and the Argento version. I got this like 25 years ago. And it's, I mean, I just have it. I had it on display because it's badass. Nobody cares about lasers anymore. But next month, the British company Second Sight is putting out an incredible box set of Dawn of the Dead in 4K. They have access to the negative elements, everything. It's got the director's cut or the can version, the original theatrical version, and the Argento cut of Dawn of the Dead is coming out in the ultimate box set, although they're not shipping to the United States.
Oh,
So you
that
have to
sucks.
either buy it from Zavvi or, even Amazon UK, who I buy from all the time. They're not shipping to the United States. So, it's very frustrating. We've been ostracized from the world. So getting these great things that I scour the planet for, people are like, well, it's great that you want it, but we're not going to ship to the US. But so I had to I pre-ordered it from like 3 different places.
right.
It's like 3 different versions. I don't care if I get all 3, but I had to, because I can't not have it. Like I go to sleep at night dreaming about this Dawn of the Dead box set.
It
And
will bother you, and it will keep you awake.
dude, if I don't have it in my hot little hands, like right when it comes out, because these things, like a Studio Canal put out a 5-disc version of the Flash Gordon. They just remastered Flash Gordon, the 1980 Flash Gordon in 4K, and they put out a 5-disc set, and it was sold out and out of print the day it was released. So if you don't jump on that stuff like right away, but then other companies are picking stuff up, like Shout Factory is going to release all the Studio Canal John Carpenter 4K discs domestically, but they're not going to be those 4-disc sets. Boy, this is the geekiest conversation. See, I don't get to talk this way on my own channel.
Yeah, see, this is great. I love it. This is awesome. This is exactly what we want to do here.
Yes.
I mean,
So-
go ahead.
Yeah, let me have you seen the 4K 300 yet?
I haven't seen it. I did order it, but I haven't seen it. I don't think it's come out yet.
Yeah,
The-
it did. It came
No,
out.
did it come out already?
It came out this past. Yeah, because I have it.
Oh, there you go. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it. I haven't got
I'll
mine yet. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'll let you make it. It's pretty good. There are a couple of times there. I will admit that you see. You kind of noticed it because I think they used blue screen instead of green for 300 when they were making it.
That
so,
could be.
Yeah, there's a couple of times where
You
I think
could tell?
it's too high def. It's just
Yeah.
But I have it on Blu-ray as well, and I watch it all the time because 300 is an amazing movie, and I love it to death. But yeah, there's a couple of times, so I won't try to change it. When you watch it, when you get it, you watch it. And what touch best again? You let me know what you thought of the.
Well, one of the problems. What year did that come out? It came out in the mid-aughts.
2006.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2006, same year as Casino Royale. The problem with some films like that is they're finished in 2K.
That's what
And
it
when you
was,
see
yes.
an up-res of the film, and a lot of movies, even movies like a lot of the early MCU films, the visual effects are finished in 2K. They're not finished in 4K. So when you get a 4K up-res and like a 300, sometimes it betrays the source material. But I think for the most part, that's why I like when I buy 4K discs, I like to buy movies that were photochemically made, on film. That's why, like the 4K of Die Hard has never looked very good on home video. It's always been smeary, and because that 4K of Die Hard is a revelation. And
that's one of the best 4Ks I've ever watched. Is the 4K of Die Hard.
Unbelievable, again, because of Jan de Bont's photography, and it was really hard. Another disc that I couldn't believe what it was like in 4K was The Matrix. When they put out the first Matrix, is like night and day compared to the original Blu-ray, because it was finished on film, and it's amazing.
That's the difference.
See, that one I want to get. That one I definitely want to get.
Yeah, that's why I've kind of stopped. If I've already bought something that was finished in 2K, I don't necessarily go back and buy the 4K up-res or the 4K re-release unless it's photochemically done. But like, I recently got a movie like Hitchcock's Vertigo. It's so good looking. I mean, I put it on. I wanted to walk up to my screen and put my tongue on my screen because I figured it must taste like candy. It looks so good. I know that's such a weird thing to do. It's so very Cronenbergian.
Not at all. Not at all.
My head would go into Debbie Harry's lips. But
go ahead.
Well, no, amazing stuff. Like, and also somebody said that I got the recent remaster of David Lynch's The Elephant Man, again from Studio Canal. It hasn't been released in America in 4K, but it's black and white, but it's so tasty. It's so amazing because it's photochemically done. And, getting things that are finished in Dolby Vision or HDR10 plus, it's just, when I was a kid, it's the same thing with action figures and toys. We now live in a world where we have the best versions of everything, all the things I bought when I was a kid, movies and action figures and model kits. We have the best.
Everything is better now. Everything is better.
Everything, yeah. And as I feel bad that I'm like a middle-aged man with one foot in the grave, and they come out and I'm like, oh, Hot Toys is putting that out, and I've got to like buy that. But
it's only right though. It's only because, I mean, look, growing up, a lot of toys that I wanted to buy, they slowly got better as I got older. But the same goes for a lot of different things. I mean, even like we're saying earlier, video games. I know that when I get older and I become a senior citizen and I'm not working anymore, I'm just gonna play games all day long. I'm just gonna play video games all day long. I mean,
smoke pot and play video games. That's all you're gonna do.
You'll live longer, less stress.
Yeah,
your bloodstream full of THC and you're less stressed because you're killing things all day. So by the night rolls around, you're very calm.
Yeah, I'm very calm, ready to go to bed. But here's the thing that was that even my kids, for instance, now, come Halloween, which we're in the month of October, obviously, even kids' costumes are so much cooler now than they ever were when we were kids. Now they have the fake muscles, they have cool accessories, they have the real masks. And I'm just like, man, why didn't they make this when I was a kid? I used to have just the straight mask that like sits on your face, and then the suit that just it looks like you're out of shape or you're fat. Now it's like they have the built-in muscles. They have all these accessories like the Mandalorian. It's incredible. And I mean, I see these costumes and I'm like, man, if they fit me, I would have bought these costumes. But
well, they like I remember when I was a kid. There's a picture of me actually. I was Cornelius once from Planet of the Apes.
So,
and it was one of those flimsy plastic masks with some hair on it. Yeah. But what I hated was you got the costume, but on the front that's supposed to have the ape writing, the ape language, it would say Planet of the Apes. The logo for the movie is on the front. And I'm like, what kind of stupid ass shit is this? I mean, I would buy it and wear it because what are you going to do? That's the Planet of the Apes. But I mean, that's the kind of thing.
Like a walking billboard.
Yeah. And like, how are you supposed to make believe something when it's like when Mego first put out the Batmobile, like for the 8-inch Mego figures, there's a huge Batman logo on the side on the doors. Yeah. And you're like, That's not on the Batmobile. Why do I have to be reminded that this is the Batmobile? It's my Batmobile. So of course, then you're a kid and you have to peel the stickers off because they weren't, and then they would invariably tear as you're peeling them off. So you had a half sticker in it. Then your father, you'd be like, Dad, I need lighter fluid so I can take this. You can't have lighter fluid, son. I'm like, come on, Dad, I got to get the sticker off. I'm telling you, life is much better now, kids. Much better now.
It really is. Yes, and like you were saying about all the toys that are coming out now, like the Hot Toys, or like we saw earlier with the what was the website called? Jazz Inc.
Hot Toys were invented for nostalgia. That's what it is.
But that's the thing, is that they capitalize on our nostalgia.
It's the frustration about how when we were kids and what we have to deal with now. That's what it basically is. It's saying, okay, that's why they're so expensive, because they're marketed towards people who are already grown.
Right. Well, but they're totally worth the money. Like their die-cast Iron Man suits that cost like $400 each are unbelievable. The engineering on those toys and how many pieces they are, and they all light up. And I look at these things and I'm like, I would buy every Hot Toy figure, but I don't make any money. Like I can't afford that stuff. I mean, it's if you bought it, you're talking every year Hot Toys puts out thousands of dollars worth of action figures.
Yeah, they do.
And it's not cheap. I mean, they come at a premium price if you want to get the good ones, and the ones that generally it's the ones that everybody wants. I mean, they're at a premium price, but it's for a reason, because they have so much detail and so much color, and they're just so beautiful.
Well, and they also, as far as investments go, if you buy those figures, invariably, unless you get a lame figure that, I mean, they do put out figures that nobody buys, and then those aren't worth anything. But like, if you had bought any of their Rogue One figures, and I didn't buy any of them, and that was a mistake because I like Rogue One. I didn't buy any, like K2SO, the robot. That robot's hugely expensive now. It's like 3 times what it retailed for.
Man.
And that's how I justify it. Like Elizabeth's like, God damn it, another Hot Toy figure came out. I'm like, baby, this is an investment. If I get hit by a bus, you can sell it. It's all right.
This will keep you afloat if something happens to me.
Yeah. That's the thing. With my will, I should just say where you should sell everything I own. Go to this place to sell this, and that place to sell that.
That's a good idea.
Right.
This is another one right here. It's the Big Bad Toy Store. Let's see.
Dude, don't even. If I'm glad that the Big Bad Toy Store archives your orders. It's horrible.
I mean, look at this.
Oh.
Look at that.
I mean, how great is that? That's another thing. The statues and the busts, like Prime One Studios. Do you guys know a YouTuber? His channel is called Gem Mint.
I believe I do.
He sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
Look at the stubble on his chin.
Dude, I know. Well, there's a Gem Mint. He has a channel and he collects omnibuses and he collects superhero statues.
Yeah, okay. Now I remember him.
I don't know him at all, but I mean, I watch everyone. I live vicariously through him because I don't collect those giant Prime One statues. I can't even go down that road because I would go insane. But he does, and he gets all these statues and omnibuses, and I'm like, I just watch his channel to live vicariously through him. But the statues they make now, like Prime One Studios, they're giant. They're like, they're 3 feet tall. The sculpting is unbelievable. And you look at the stuff and you're like, well, I did pre-order a Prime One statue like a year and a half ago, a Robotech statue of
awesome.
a Jurog, a Batroid in Jurog mode, and I'm like, I don't know if it'll ever get made.
Which one did you get? You got the skull one? You got the Roy Fokker.
Yeah, Roy. Okay. You know what I have too? A thing that I got this past year. I don't know if it came out this year in 2019. There's a company called Playmax, and it's out of Japan, and they've made a 1/20th scale model of Roy Fokker's Valkyrie.
Wow.
And it's like,
imagine the detail.
It's like this big, and I can see the box right over there, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, with not a lot of movies coming out, I think like in the next 2.5 months I gotta bust that out, because I want it hanging above me here in the Raw Observatory. Like literally, I mean, it's huge. It's gigantic. And you can actually, it came with, I bought the secondary stickers. I mean, the secondary decals. So you can make it any one of the main team. You can make it Rick Hunter's. You can make it Max's. But it's got to be Roy Fokker.
But when if you were going to make it Max's or Rick's, wouldn't you have to paint it though?
Yeah, I mean, you have to paint it anyway. But the decals that it comes with, it does have all the different colors. So you can choose. It's got a huge decal sheet, and you can choose because the model itself came with stickers. And stickers suck. They look like, I mean, it's like stickers. I need water slide decals, but they actually, you had to buy the water slide decals separately, and they were like $60 for a water slide. And of course, you know, I'm an idiot, so I have to have them. I can't have stickers. It'll look like a toy. Come on, man. You know,
stickers.
And that's what we always did as kids, though. We're always like, no, I have to have the real thing. It has to be as real as possible.
Yeah.
And now we have the ability to get these toys to look as real as possible in these models. It's incredible.
The good thing now, though, is like I used to want everything. Now I don't. I only buy very specific things. So I don't really buy much. I used to buy like everything, but nowadays, because everything is so cool, you have to decide like, okay, I'm only buying these things.
Till they actually start coming out with real life Blade Runner replicants that you could have in your house.
Dude.
Just imagine that. We're gonna get to that point too.
I want the standard pleasure model. the Daryl Hannah life-size.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's gonna happen.
She's from a Kick Murder Squad, and she's a pleasure model. You can do whatever you want with her. She can be your bodyguard or your girlfriend.
The only problem with those, man. Robert, the only problem we'd have to worry about with those is that those kinds of things would inevitably get hacked, and people would be getting murdered by their replicants.
Yes, they would. Yes, they would. And then of course we'd have like replicants' lives matter, and there'd be protests in the streets, and they would want more than a 4-year lifespan, and it would just be bad. And then they would be banned. You could only have them on the off-world colonies.
And of course, they would also want the right to vote, Rob. So
really, the right to vote.
There you go.
Yeah. And then a war would start between the humans and the robots, and it would go from there.
And once the replicants started to reproduce,
yeah, Skynet.
Hugo's asking about he said he's asking about your shirt.
So speaking of Blade Runner, this is a shirt of Rachel.
Yeah.
Now, this is another thing I love. I love the late great John Schnepp, and I still love my geeky t-shirts. The geekier the better. And one of the things that started to happen over the last couple of years is like on Facebook, there's all these companies that make these unlicensed shirts. Now, like I don't like shirts that say, like, if you have a shirt that has something Star Trek on it where it says Star Trek. I mean, I hate that shit. I like finding shirts where people look at it and go, oh, if they know, they know. Like one of the greatest
right.
Yeah, one of the greatest geeky t-shirt companies, and I think of them as the Tiffany if you want to, Tiffany the jeweler. If you want the Tiffany of geeky shirts, there's a company called Last Exit to Nowhere. And they're out of the UK, and all their shirts are logos from places in movies, like logos of things that, like, they make a Cyberdyne
like Taco
system.
Bell from Demolition Man.
Well, yeah, they'll do. They've got. Then the first time I ever saw, and why I got obsessed with that how I found that company is there used to be a Geek magazine that my friend Mark Altman produced, and there was a Simon Pegg interview. And I think it was in support of Shaun of the Dead or something. And Simon Pegg was wearing a T-shirt with the logo for WGON, the TV station, but that's the TV station from the original Dawn of the Dead. And I'm like, I was beside myself. I'm like, where did he get that? Like, what? And it was the early days, like 20 years ago or something, the early days of the internet. And I was searching, and then I found Last Exit to Nowhere. And that's where, and I've been buying shirts from them ever since. I mean, they make shirts, you name it, like Wayland Yutani and from the Alien franchise, and all their shirts are cool. And
you have one of those too. I've seen your Wayland Yutani shirt. Yeah,
I've probably got 15 or 20 Last Exit to Nowhere shirts. I mean, they do things like they're so obscure, like from David Cronenberg's Videodrome. they do a Civic TV, the public access TV station that James Woods' character managed. They have a Civic TV shirt that John Schnepp had, and it's just like they're so obscure, but that's what I like. You know, I like that when the people that know, no one else does.
Right, exactly.
And the people that it's like you'll be at Comic-Con or something, somebody will go, like your shirt. Like that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate compliment. Like your shirt, because they
one
know.
Of one of the best shirts I ever seen from them was a shirt that just had like you know the origami from Blade Runner.
Oh, that's a
that's
great
all
shirt.
that's all it had on the center of it was just the origami. It'd be like, wow.
It's like if you know what it is, and you know what it is. If you don't, too bad.
Yeah, it's like you're part of a secret club.
Exactly. It's like if you don't know what it is, then I'm sorry, but you don't know what it is.
Because this shirt is not a last day, but there's a lot of companies like in my Facebook feed, these shirts will pop up that are made by they're unlicensed, but like this is one of those shirts. Like I'm like, oh my God, that's Rachel from Blade Runner, and I'll order it. So they're on to me. So I get all these, and a lot of the shirts are not good. They're not clever. Like I like shirts that are clever and have an interesting design. You know, the more obscure, like you guys know what see, I'm with my peeps. If the people know what the shirts are, then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
You're in the right place.
Well, it's funny because earlier today on the John Campea show, he made a comment. He was like, "Hey, I love your shirt, Robert." And I noticed it right away. I was like, "Oh my God, it's a cool shirt. Where do you get that from?" Because it's a Blade Runner shirt. I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome."
And the thing is, they pop up once and they're like, this shirt's available for 3 days, and then it goes away.
Oh, and that's when they suck you in. You're like,
yes.
You know?
And there are some things like I love it when there's this famous French painting that has a cat. It's like it's a geometric like cat that it's like yellow and black. It's a famous French painting that you know half the girls I used to date when I was growing up would have this poster in their apartments. And I don't know it's famous. I just don't know what it is. Well, someone took that painting and they put Black Phillip from the movie The Witch, the evil satanic goat from the movie Robert Eggers movie The Witch, and put it into that art. And I'm like, it was like somebody reached into my mind and said, if you could find the coolest like obscure referenced shirt, that would have been it. And so, you know, it was like click. You know, I didn't even think twice. I'm like, I must have that.
They've got a shirt right now on their website that is the cover of George McFly's novel from Back to the Future.
Oh,
I am like geeking out just looking at that. I'm like, wow, that's incredible.
That's one to own right there. That is one to own. Oh my gosh. And where was that at?
Is it on Last Exit to Nowhere?
That's on Last Exit to Nowhere. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
And there's other things like there's a guy that is an audience member of my show. He just started watching my show, and his name's Cal, and he lives in Malaysia. And his online name is Swack S''WAK Swack Props. Now I didn't, other than the fact that he was an audience member, would super chat me or something. I one day I just went, I'm going to look that up. And so Swack Props, I looked it up and it takes me to an Etsy store. It was his. It turns out it's his Etsy store. And what he does is he makes prop replicas of paper products from movies like books. And he makes, I wonder if I've got let's see where, well, where did I put it?
What's up, Dylan Batia?
But he makes books like, he made a book that I couldn't believe anybody would have made this, but there's a movie called The Ninth Gate that Johnny Depp is in, and it's about a book. It's about this book, The Nine Gates of the Kingdom of Heaven. And so Swack Props made this book, and I was looking at it, I'm like, it's perfect. It's better than the prop books they used in the movie. And like he makes Henry Jones's Grail Diary from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but it's got all the little insert pieces. I mean, he's so fanatical about it. And it's funny because he just sent me. I thought I had it within arm's reach.
I wonder if he does the Never-Ending Story.
Oh, that would be a good one too.
That's a good. He might, but I just love that. I love that there was a fan out there that decided my art. The thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make prop replica books from. And he just sent me. I was going to show it to you. The reason I thought about it was he just sent me he didn't even tell me he was going to do this. He sent me a bag. A thing came from Malaysia of stuff that he doesn't sell, like on his website, and one of them was the sports almanac from Back to the Future 2.
Oh wow!
And
it's real.
It's unbelievable. I opened this up, and it's so well done. I mean, his stuff is. He also sent me the map to Erebor. That was the map to the Misty Mountain where Smaug lives, and the Hobbit. But they also he sent me that too. It's perfect. I mean, it looks exactly like it looks in Lord of the Rings, and he uses like the same kind of parchment, and he weathers it. It looks real. And the fact that there are now fans out there that can do that kind of art, I mean, I don't know if anybody would ever know what my prop replica book of the Nine Gates means to me. People would be like, what is this? This isn't a real book. I'm like, oh yes, it is. In my mind, it is. But that's what people can do now. People are making the coolest stuff. And
you can find a lot of great stuff on Etsy, just as an aside, because Etsy, there's a lot of creative people out there.
My wife is on there all the time getting ideas for different like projects and crafts that she makes. And Anthony, you know all about, because your wife has that the Cricut printer. Yeah. Oh my gosh. My wife watches videos about how to do different things with that printer. It's incredible the stuff that's out there.
Is that a 3D printer?
No, it's
it does like etching. It does all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. It enables you to make, like it cuts like vinyl and stuff, so you can make like T-shirts or cups or other things like that. Yeah.
You still got my shirt, Anthony?
Yeah, it's still here.
Fire.
I don't want to send everybody's out. I want to make sure all of them are finished before I send them out.
Oh, okay.
By the way,
let's see it.
All right, hold on.
Okay, cool. I was like, that's a very cool shirt you have.
That's a cool shirt. I like it a lot too.
Yeah.
We'll see what he says when he comes back. He's reaching for it right now. He's trying to get it. He's almost got it. There it is. There's my shirt.
This is.
Wow, that's really cool.
And that's what the printer could make for you.
Wow. So how come you're not selling those in your own store?
I don't know.
Do what? I don't have it. No, I don't. That's my wife does all of that.
She made that. But I do have a Teespring account, so guys, you can go on Teespring and look up the Nickatina Show and buy the apparel that's located on the website.
It's fire. It is pretty fire.
So, guys, there was some crazy news that came out today, which was the return of Dexter. So the show Dexter is going to be coming back for a miniseries run on Showtime. And I absolutely adore Dexter in the entire series. I thought it was one of the best shows that was
until the end
was out there until the end. But even the end, to me, it made sense because, I mean, look, the guy's a serial killer in the sense he's a narcissist. If you think he's really going to for him to not be himself, that's essentially him killing himself, to have to pretend to be somebody else and not do what he wants to do. But the show itself was great. And my favorite season of all the seasons was, I believe it was season 4 or 5. It's the one with John Lithgow when it was the whole Trinity killer. That was the best season, in my opinion, of Dexter.
I kind of have a feeling that if they're going to bring it back, even for just a limited series, if they're going to actually go through all that, then they probably are going to kill him off at the end this time.
I don't know if they will kill him off. I don't know if he's a character that you do kill off. I mean, you could, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I don't see
is that not what everybody pretty much wanted who was watching it? They wanted him to get caught and be killed, or at least be caught and locked up or something.
Robert, what do you think of the whole Dexter series?
Well, again, we live in these wondrous times when they do things like they bring back Veronica Mars and they bring back Dexter and they bring back the Karate Kid. You know, I mean, Cobra Kai.
Who would talk about an epic TV show. I mean, God.
I mean, not only is it's so good, but can you imagine like the balls of even pitching that? Yeah. Like, can you imagine someone rolls in like you're a studio executive? Yeah, we'd like to bring back the Karate Kid and we're going to focus on the bad guy. We're going to humanize, Williams Vodka or whatever. And like, you are what? And the fact that even got made blows me away. And
it's all because of that internet video, Robert. The internet video where the YouTube video where they pointed out that Daniel was really the bad guy of the Karate Kid. That's what inspired it all. So that's
Well, have you seen the video like somebody did a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air video, but made it dramatic?
Yeah.
That video now has they're making that show.
They're making that show, and Will Smith is on board like a producer or something.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. And
I think it's called Bel Air. I think
it's just called Bel Air.
Yeah, it's just called Bel Air. But it was awesome when I saw it. I was like, wow.
It's a totally serious take on that material.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is why I love living in this time, to be a lifelong geek and to be a complete consumer of media and to love all this stuff. We're getting, people like us have grown up and they come in the industry and they come up with these crazy ideas and then they get to make stuff. I mean, one of my favorites was Ryan Coogler making Creed. He had made Fruitville Station. Mm-hmm. He had a film school education. He makes Fruitville Station, which gets a lot of acclaim. Yes. And he uses that acclaim and rather than like parlay that into something, he like goes to Sylvester Stallone and he's like, hey Sly, my mom was dying of cancer and my dad and I watched a lot of Rocky movies and I came up with this idea to make another Rocky movie, your signature character that you have been nurturing and you have been directing. Mm-hmm. He actually had the balls to go to Stallone and go, I'd like to make a Rocky movie and I want you to be in the secondary role, and I have a new character, Adonis Creed, and Sly, in his infinite wisdom, okay, let it happen.
And he got an Oscar nomination out of it.
He got an Oscar nomination. It did. And Ryan Coogler proved. I mean, I'm always saying this on my show, but Ryan Coogler proved how the love of a franchise, if you're a talented filmmaker and you truly love a franchise, how you can make it something that reinvigorates that franchise, and even though you're 7 sequels in, how you can re-energize, reinvigorate, and make it brand new for a new audience. Yeah. And not only that, it elevates all of the movies that came before it. Mm-hmm. Not that Rocky won Best Picture, but that's the kind of world. I mean, on the flip side of that is you get the just disgusting, horrible bastardization of Star Trek that Discovery is, But I know I'm sorry, I can't help it. But the a movie like Creed shows you, and I'm convinced that's one of the reasons why Kevin Feige tapped Ryan Coogler to do Black Panther. I mean, obviously Ryan Coogler's black, but I think that what he did with Creed in terms of working in universe and honoring those characters he gave Stallone. Yeah. I mean, if I was Kevin Feige, I'm like, that's the guy that I want to come and work in an established universe. Assuming he liked the MCU, because
speaking of Rocky, Robert, are you excited that Sylvester Stallone is putting out a director's cut of Rocky 4?
Dude,
there's no robot.
Come on. I grew up with Rocky. I love the Rocky franchise. I was never a big I'll tell you this.
Hey. I know it's a sore subject because there's no robot in Rocky 4 and he doesn't like that idea.
Well, R2, what can you do? I think that I really am enjoying, like, Francis Coppola went back and did a version of Apocalypse Now, the final cut, and then he did the Cotton Club Encore, and now he's doing a new version of Godfather 3.
Version of Godfather 3 that's actually being called Coda.
Yeah.
The death of Michael Corleone, which is actually what he wanted it to be initially. So I'm thinking, and this is just, I don't know if it's wishful thinking or not, but I'm thinking, Rob, we're going to get a superior and actual respectable version of Godfather 3.
Oh, I think so. I think so. Definitely, we're going to get a more respectable version of Godfather 3, and rightfully so.
I mean, I'm actually a fan. There's 2 versions of Godfather 3. There's the theatrical, and then there's the longer version that's like 9 minutes longer. I like a lot of Godfather 3. I think obviously Sofia Coppola, she stepped in at the last minute for Winona Ryder, and I think that the Andy Garcia subplot is a little underdeveloped, but I liked everything that was going on in Godfather 3. It's just the execution was lacking, but there's some really great stuff in that, like the helicopter attack in Atlantic City is really cool against all the bosses, and I do like the end in Sicily. But
the fact that this is actually is able to happen,
right?
That's that in and of itself. I mean,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
and I think because Cotton Club, I thought was the encore version was so much better because, one of the things that he was dealing with when he first made Cotton Club is the producers thought it was too black. because he had a lot of a lot of the musical numbers. I mean, the Cotton Club was a black club in Harlem, and the whole point was to showcase the music and the dance numbers, and they made him take a lot of that out to concentrate on the gangster shenanigans. And one of the things I really loved about seeing Encore was getting to see everything that was going on in the Cotton Club itself. I mean, that's why it was much better. You get to see those musical numbers, and you get all of that that rich, lush production that they actually did that was cut out of the film. He got to go restore it, and that's what, again, a function of the modern age. The fact that studios and filmmakers will allow the filmmakers to go back and do that kind of stuff and put up the money to let them do it is amazing. It's amazing.
Now, the idea is, though, don't you think? I think a lot of this is coming from the idea that the studios are seeing what a rousing success the Snyder cut of Justice League is. The idea of being able to let the director go back and put out his vision, and now all of a sudden we're hearing about a new version of Rocky IV. We're hearing about a director's cut for Godfather 3. This is like going to usher in a whole new era.
Exactly. It's a whole new era. And plus, I like what Master Blaster says. Can we please get a Howard the Duck part 2? I mean, Howard the Duck was such a cool
I want
movie.
a director's cut of Howard the Duck.
I love Howard the Duck.
or
James
James Gunn doing a Howard the Duck movie.
Oh, that would be good right there.
See, now there's a property that would be perfect for James Gunn. Howard the Duck. 1,000%. If there's any movie, I mean, I would be 1,000% more excited to see something like that than what he's doing right now. I think if you give him Howard the Duck, it'd be right up his alley.
Yeah, although I have to say, during DC Fandom, that making of piece they showed of Suicide Squad, I'm like in. With Peacemaker and all that. I'm like, because I hated Suicide Squad. To be honest, David Ayer, I did not like it at all.
Well,
and what
it was understandable as well, because there was a lot of it's not the complete
Ayer wanted us to see.
No, I mean, if you look at the trailers for Suicide Squad, there's all this footage, like especially
that we
the
didn't get.
Joker.
Yep.
You don't see any of it, and you're like, what? And when you hear that movie was edited by a trailer company, I mean, it's for me as an editor myself, it's almost unwatchable. That film is. So I would love to see David Ayer go back. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I think that the Suicide Squad it suffered from the same thing that the Snyder Cut suffered from. You had a regime that was at the studio that had a lot of pressure at the time that they had to compete with Marvel. Yes. Literally across the street. I mean, literally Disney's just down. The Disney building is almost across the street from Warner Brothers, and then the Disney lot's down the street from Warner Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And I think that the executives were second guessing themselves. Like they didn't. I mean, if you look at Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, it did a lot better than Captain America, Thor, or the first Iron Man. Mm-hmm. I mean, it made like $650 million.
Yeah.
And so to launch the DC universe, it did pretty well. But what happens is by the time Man of Steel rolls around, they want to do Avengers numbers. They're like, well, Avengers is making 1.5 billion. So the studio executives get it in their mind. I mean, it's really interesting. They figured that they wanted to go right to Avengers numbers without earning them. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they built up to that. Like they didn't. If Iron Man 1 didn't work, there would be no MCU. No. And the Incredible Hulk didn't work that well. And they were lucky that they did Thor and they did Captain America. And even Captain America grossed less than Thor or Iron Man did. But then they still moved forward and they methodically, and they when things didn't work as well, like Thor: The Dark World, they could pivot. Iron Man 2, they could pivot and do things and make changes, all because you had the stewardship of Kevin Feige. But at DC, they didn't have anybody. They didn't have anyone. I mean, Kevin Feige worked on 13 Marvel movies before the MCU. The X-Men movies, Elektra, Daredevil, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man. He saw what worked and what didn't work. So by the time he was able to shepherd Iron Man to the screen, he really had a handle on how to make a superhero movie and make it work properly. And whereas at DC, Warner Brothers, the executives, they just wanted to copy the success of the MCU without doing the legwork, without doing the groundwork. And they started second guessing everything. Like, you read when Batman v Superman, the problems were on the wall when they decided to hack out a half an hour out of Batman v
Yeah.
Superman. Like that, they're like, well, we can't have this long of a movie, and you're like, you idiots! You released Lord of the Rings; those were 3-hour movies, and they made $1 billion almost each.
Yeah.
And they I really think, especially I'm a pretty big fan of the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, and when the theatrical version is, I don't understand why they did what they did. I think it's the ultimate cut is far superior, and I'm a huge Man of Steel fan. Like, I really, really like Man of Steel because I like that it leaned into the science fiction elements of the Superman story, and it was different than what we'd seen before, and it gave us, like, one of my favorite things in any superhero movie is when Cal has rescued the people off the oil derrick, and he's floating underneath the water with the whale that swims by.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an amazing image. And that's something that I think that Zack Snyder does really well. Like, he has some of his compositions. I mean, I know he's heavily influenced by Alex Ross and things like that, but he creates something that his movies don't look like other movies. And the painterly quality of of a lot of the imagery in Man of Steel and more so in Batman v Superman is really mythic. And it really is this idea that these are gods. You know, everyone always said the DC characters are gods and the Marvel characters are demigods. But Superman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, these characters are so larger than life. And I think that Zack Snyder's style really brings that to the fore.
Yes,
and they feel different than, and a lot of people don't dig that. A lot of people don't dig what he's doing, but I really respond to it because as a comic book reader who's grown up for my whole life reading different incarnations of characters, I liked when Alex Ross came on the scene with Marvels and started to really paint these characters both in the DC and the Marvel universe and make them larger than life and give them this painterly quality. And Snyder did that cinematically.
Yes,
you know, he gave these characters this real larger than life, epic, godlike, painterly quality. And, you know, one of my favorite things in any superhero movie is the opening of Batman v Superman when you see the end of Man of Steel from Bruce Wayne's perspective on the ground. And, you know, you look at that and it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And because if people like Zod and Superman were really battling in Metropolis, it would be one of the most.
You mean this guy right here?
Yes, it would be one of the most devastating things ever.
Yes,
and this idea that people are like, well, Superman's not. He's not worried about innocent bystanders. It's like, give me a break. He's been Superman for a week. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. He's fighting somebody that's been trained for battle his whole life, and he's a Kryptonian. And Superman's barely learned to fly. And what is he supposed to be? He saves the world from an extinction level event. He saves billions of people, and what's he gonna do? Put Zod in prison?
What prison?
Yeah,
What
exactly. What prison
like,
would hold him? There isn't a prison that would hold him, and he had no choice because if he didn't make that decision, that family was going to pay the consequences. They were going to die, and so he was faced with: do I let somebody die because I'm trying to hold this moral? No, he had to kill him, and because he had to save them. Did he want to do it? No, he didn't want to do it, but that's what he had to do. And I like how you said that too, because he'd only been Superman for a week. I mean, the first time that we ever get to see him use his powers in an aggressive manner was when he attacks Zod after he's attacking his mother. And that's one of the things I love so much is because that's the first time Cal has ever had the chance to use his powers in an aggressive manner to protect somebody. Because I mean, how many times do we see scenes where as a kid he was not allowed to show his abilities even though he wanted to, but getting bullied or you know, when he saved the kids, you know, from the who were drowning in the bus. And so that was his first time. He said, you know what, I don't have to hold anything back now. He's attacking my mother. He's not going to stand for it. And so it's just an incredible scene.
Well, even in Superman the movie, like Christopher Reeve, he's in the Fortress of Solitude for 12 years learning from Jor-El.
Yes.
12 years learning everything he needs to know to be Superman. So when he emerges from the fortress in Superman the movie, he's basically gone through all of the education he needs from the 28 known galaxies to know what to do. Well, the Superman of Man of Steel doesn't have that, you know, and has to figure it out on his own. And suddenly he's confronted with world engines that are going to destroy the planet and Zod's going to kill every human being on Earth. I mean, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, Zod. But no, it's true though, and that's a huge. I mean, just to kind of have that thrust upon you and say, hey, now I have to stop this guy from destroying the planet. It's one thing to say, hey, I gotta stop him from taking over the world and becoming the new leader of the world, dominator. But he was trying to terraform the planet Earth, and he was going to destroy everybody in the process.
I feel a lot of the time too. I mean, I've been obviously a lifelong fan of all this material, but what I have tried to do when I watch these things and judge them is I try and judge things based on what I'm actually seeing on screen. Like a lot of people are like, well, this isn't my Superman. My Superman, I want the Superman of the animated series, or I want the Christopher Reeve Superman, or I want, whatever, Superman of all seasons from the comics, whatever your favorite incarnation of Superman. But when I watched Man of Steel, I sat down and went in and I thought to myself, all right, I am seeing an entirely new interpretation of Superman from the ground up, and I'm watching it within the context, just the same way you'd watch the Christopher Nolan movies. Is you're looking at a Batman origin, and you're seeing over 3 movies the Batman that movie series wants to show us, which is different than the Batman from the Tim Burton Batman movies, and different from the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, and different from the Matt Reeves Batman that's being made. So when I watched Superman, Man of Steel, I love the fact that it was first and foremost a science fiction movie. That you're looking at Krypton, and it's familiar, and that you see Zod and Jor-El have a beef, and the Kryptonian Council, but you're watching totally a new version, a reinterpretation of Krypton. There's that great scene where he looks out over the visage of what's going on at the beginning. Jor-El does. So immediately to me, I'm like, oh, cool. So we're getting something new. We're getting a complete reinterpretation of the Superman mythos, as at least the way this movie is telling it to us. Yeah. So from that perspective, once I was in, I'm like, okay, let's go. And when I talk to people and their criticisms about Superman, all of their criticisms, to me at least, are always based on other versions of Superman. They're not really criticizing the version of Superman that's being presented in the film itself. It's like, well, Superman doesn't kill, and you're like, well, during the Byrne run, when he found the pocket universe, he certainly killed the 3 villains from Krypton. Superman straight up murdered Zod, Ursa, and Non. And that was in a Byrne comic, because they had killed everybody on the Earth, on the pocket universe of the Earth anyway. So to me, I don't bring other interpretations in. I try and judge something for its own sake. I think
that's the mistake that people make.
That is the mistake they made.
They make that mistake basing their opinions off of everything solely how they remember it.
Right.
And if it's not how I remember it, or if it's not how I interpreted it, I'm not open to anything new, and I'm not going to look at it as being a new interpretation from the ground up, like you so eloquently stated. That's what it is. It's all about not being open to new intertations because you're so fixated in the way that you see things. So
they're applying what we know about Superman and his lore to this character.
But it's not even what they know about the lore, because they only know their own tunnel vision version of it.
Right.
But most of these people
they're applying
know
No, I agree.
Version. Yeah, they only know the Christopher Reeve version.
They're applying what they know from the Christopher Reeve version of Superman to Henry Cavill's version of Superman. And so when he's going about doing the things that he's doing, they keep saying, well, why is he not doing this? And why is he not doing that? Well, he's not the same character as you saw in the Richard Donner films. He's an entirely different character. It's a different take of the character. And I love how you, like I said before, I love how you said he'd only been Superman for like a week.
Hey,
I mean,
fresh on the job.
Yeah,
he's only worked a couple shifts.
Well, he doesn't even know he's
an extra shift.
he knows. I guess he knows he's an extraterrestrial. He came from, but he doesn't know anything else at the beginning of that movie. And he finds out later, like he discovers the buried Kryptonian ship and all that that's in the ice, and I loved all of that, because also there was one of the things that I like about modern superhero films, and I used to say this like back in the 90s. I said, what people want, what fans that grew up reading comic books, what they want from a superhero movie is they want to believe that superheroes, as we know them, can exist in our world.
Yes.
Meaning that you want to like, and this is what I think the brilliance of the MCU is that the MCU is not set in some Anton First Gotham City that's production designed like in Tim Burton's Batman. The MCU takes place in our world, or as close to our world as possible.
Right.
I mean, it's not some future world. It's basically our world today.
It's a regular world. Yeah.
And so when you go from that, if you go from that perspective, it's like, all right, well, they've applied that to everything. So if Captain America fights in World War II, when they redesign, and this is another thing I think the MCU does that's brilliant, the designs of all of their superhero costumes are amazing. I think they're amazing. And when you saw, because you believe them, and the costume they gave Captain America, not when he's on his USO tour, but the actual Captain America costume that he's fighting with the Howling Commandos or whatever in World War II, it's Captain America's costume, but it looks like fatigues. Like you could believe that Captain America went to battle in that suit. He still looks like Captain America, but it was functional. And I believed in the look of that character when he's fighting in World War II. And that's a really hard thing to do. And then when he's in his modern costume and the way they've redesigned it, especially all the way up to Infinity War, it was interesting to see the first Captain America costume in Endgame fighting, bringing that costume back, and then seeing where it's evolved to, because I love the version of the Captain America costume that he ends up that ends Endgame. That costume, I think it was introduced in Civil War or maybe Age of
I think it was Winter Soldier. He might have started wearing that. That more modern take.
Yeah, with the leather straps. Yeah. I mean, that is I believe that. Like I believe. No,
it was definitely believable, and even his mask. It was more shaped as a helmet, like a military helmet, but fashioned as a mask for him. So there was so many elements that made more sense and how they applied to him. So I definitely agree.
And all of those costumes, I mean, I love from Ant-Man to Thor to Black Widow to Captain Marvel, because any of those costumes, that's why they make such great action figures, because they're able, Hot Toys is able to translate them because they're so well thought out in terms of the fabrics they use. And that's why one of the reasons I love the Avengers Hot Toys figures, because they look so damn good as toys. They really nail that stuff and those costumes. And I have to say, with DC, I mean, some people have problems with like the Flash costume. They don't like, I kind of do like the Flash costume a lot, but I loved the Man of Steel costume. Yes, he doesn't have the red trunks, but I believed that the idea that I always thought that like in Superman Returns, that the Kryptonian costumes were crystalline based, like you could grow them because it's all crystal technology. And they sort of the Kryptonian technology in Man of Steel is different, but I just loved that costume. And when they amped up the colors in Justice League, they brought it back more. I love that too. I mean, it was and the Aquaman costume. I love the Wonder Woman costume.
Yeah,
because again,
that was a really good one too.
They've done a really, and I even thought that I was worried about how the Shazam costume would look, but they even made that look great as well. And it's very much like Shazam. Yeah. And you go back and you look at the Joel Schumacher Batman costumes, and you're like, the suits, like, come on, man. I don't believe those suits for a minute. And but they've solved that problem, and I think that's one of the great things. That's one of my favorite things about the modern age of superhero movies is, I mean, I think the first time I thought a costume, an outfit was awesome was the first Blade. When you saw Wesley Snipes' outfit in the first Blade, fucking kicks ass. Can I say fucking?
Yeah,
you can.
Dude,
no, Blade 1 kicks a lot of ass. And
it really does.
And the opening scene with the guy in the club, and then it turns into a whole vampire club.
Bloodbath,
yes. Yeah, and then he shows up and just starts wrecking everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a great movie.
Yeah.
And so, the fact that we're seeing all these new cuts of these movies coming out, one cut that has been talked about a lot, and some of the fans here had questions as well, was the Ayer cut. I mean, do you think that because we're seeing all these new cuts of movies being released, is it only a matter of time before we get to see the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad?
Well, Suicide Squad did well. I mean, it did well at the box office, better than I thought it was. But I would see, you know what? A lot of people always would take me to task because over the years I would talk about the fact that, first of all, I talked a lot about the Snyder cut and because having worked on movies, when you're working on movies, there are various cuts, and they're all archived on Drive.
And Robert, I don't mean to cut you off, but you guys, for the longest time, Robert has been saying, and I agree with what Robert says, is that does a cut exist? Yes, but it is not a fully ready to go cut to just you can plop it in the theaters and ready to go. No. And when he says that, people are being what is the word? I forgot how you put it towards movie production. There's a lot that goes into it. Now, were there scenes that were done? Yes, but there's a lot more work that had to be done to that movie to make it look to the standard that Zach wanted.
And that's the thing. Like as we're seeing now, I mean, they're going to spend $100 million on the Snyder cut. They say that reshoots, it's up to 70 million. I used to say to people, I'll bet they have to put 50 to 100 million in it. And there's always people that came back at me and it's not about my opinion. It's about how movies like this are made. And, when you finish shooting a movie like this, you're a year into it's a year of post-production. And like, for instance, you get for special effect shots, you don't just, it's called turning over. When you have a turnover, you turn over the live action footage to the effects company. You watch many, many, many iterations of effects. So you'll get different versions, and they cut in rough versions when you get them. And they sometimes you might get 20 different iterations of a shot. Wow. So when you're watching movies, if you're uneducated in terms of exactly what you're watching, sometimes when you watch films, you think like, oh, it looks like this is almost done. Well, it's not almost done. And so when I was talking about the Snyder cut, he was 4 months into a year-long process. So I am sure he had a pretty close to locked picture cut, but he was nowhere near finishing all of the effects. And what I would say to people is like, the problem with a Snyder cut is who's going to pay for it, because ultimately I was like, it's not $5 million. You're talking tens of millions of dollars. Now, I said this back in November of last year when HBO Max was announced. I said on my show, somebody pointed this out to me back in November of 2019. I said, HBO Max could pay for the Snyder cut. Because once there was an entity, because Warner Brothers had already released Justice League. So for them to pay for another movie and throw good money after, well, not so good money, it seemed to me that would never happen. But an HBO Max that's going to look for programming that's going to differentiate it from another streaming service, what excites people and what will get them to come to HBO Max? The first thing that came to my mind when they announced HBO Max I was like, the Snyder cut, because there's your money. Because you have to figure out, like, okay, if a studio is going to spend money, how do they get money back? And for a subscription service, whether it's Disney Plus, the way they get money back is through their subscribers. And if you have something like the Snyder cut, they're turning it into, they have taken what they're doing with the Snyder cut beyond my wildest imaginings of what they were possibly going to do. The fact that they announced they're allowing him to do reshoots, and that's huge. Yes. That is huge. And the fact that they're going to make it a 4-hour, like, they're all in. This isn't going to be it's not going to be some half-ass thing like the Donner cut of Superman 2. This is going to be top drawer, A-list, exactly the way Snyder wants it. I think it's going to be something pretty fucking spectacular, to be honest. Yes. There's like nothing that, and the fact that they're allowing him, look, they would not give him more money to do reshoots if they weren't going, well, this is the shit we're going to hear.
Exactly.
It's almost as if AT&T came in, saw what Snyder had, looked at the fan demand, and basically said to the Warner Brothers execs who shunned him, like, what were you thinking? Right. There must have been some serious arguments going on, because for all the money, like you just pointed out, they're all in on this. This is going to usher in the epic that we always wanted to see. So, yeah, I mean,
well, and you got to believe too that now that they're moving forward with the Snyder Cut, that there may even be sequels to it based on how much they want to explore.
They're
his story arc. There's going to be a part 2, probably even a part 3. Yeah. But as Rashnan has been asking, what are your thoughts about Batfleck in terms of Ben Affleck's Batman? Do you think that there's a really good chance that we're going to see a solo outing of his character through HBO Max?
I would not have thought so a year ago or even 6 months ago, because you know that meme, the sad Affleck meme, where they're playing like no one knows what it's like, and then the camera's pushing in when he's doing press for like Justice League.
Yeah.
So Ben Affleck is a guy who is he's made 4 feature films, and even Live by Night, his last movie, might not have been as great, but it's still a really good movie. Mm-hmm. He made, The Town. He made Gone Baby Gone, The Town, Argo, which won Best Picture, and Live by Night. Ben Affleck is a world-class director. He's become a world-class director in his own right. What do you think it was like for him to watch what happened to Justice League? Here, he's working with Zack Snyder, and I bet they were having a great time.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder had a vision, and then Ben Affleck, he's already deep into this. He was a director that made 4 movies for Warner Brothers. Yeah. And then he watches what happens in the Snyder Cut. I mean, by all rights, he was having an affair or drinking. His marriage to Jennifer Garner was falling apart or whatever. And then he's making this movie and the director gets replaced. I mean, this is the ultimate nightmare for actors. They have to sit by and watch this. They've done all this great work. You have your great rapport with your director, and then this crazy shit happens. And then the movie that you've made, when it finally comes out, it's hot garbage. And it's not it's not what you worked on. Yeah. And I'm sure for Ben Affleck, I guarantee you the sting of what happened was probably it ran really deep. Well, now to see this happens with the Snyder Cut and to know how much work, I mean, he probably felt the same way about Batman v Superman. The fact that they had to cut it down so much and there's a lot of his good work.
That was probably the first strike that they did that really pissed him off. I would imagine he's probably like, man, what the hell was that all about?
So for Ben Affleck, he was fucked twice by Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. And, Live by Night didn't do as well as they hoped. It didn't get the release it got. So he was probably pretty not pleased. Pleased.
Plus, when you hear the interview that Collider put out with Joe Manganiello, when he talks about how they had changed the end credit scene that he was involved in based on the fact that they had canceled the Ben Affleck's Batman, and that was before the movie even came out. So they had already determined that, okay, we're going to cancel that movie, and we're going to pretty much probably because Ben said, I don't want to do this. This is where you guys are going to go with this.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
Batman versus Deathstroke would have been like. Ooh. I was so excited to see Ben Affleck's Batman fight Deathstroke because I'm a huge New Teen Titans fan and I love Slade Wilson. I love Deathstroke and I love Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. I'm like, come on! I was so excited. So I'm sure that was the crowning, the coup de grace blow for Ben Affleck. And I'll bet you, I mean, he's won an Academy Award for screenwriting for Good Will Hunting, and he was writing the script for this Batman movie that he was going to direct. He was co-writing it.
Let us not forget that Jay Oliva had said that was the greatest Batman script he'd ever read.
And he's directed so many of the animated movies for DC, and he would know. And it's like, I can't even imagine. So the fact that he's coming back in the Flash movie to play, I would not be surprised. I mean, they have a real problem now in that you have Matt Reeves, the Batman, being made. Yeah. So how do you then pivot and make this other Batman movie? I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it gets a little murky, especially if Matt Reeves wants to make a trilogy or something. However,
HBO Max.
If they like the Snyder Cut and world-class filmmakers are no longer going, well, I'm not going to make a movie for streaming services. I'm going to make movies for theatrical release. I mean, that stigma that's been swept away. There is no more stigma about where movies are going to go.
Well,
You know,
especially in today's world where we're living in a pandemic, we see that Disney is putting all their focus into streaming and putting content on Disney Plus. It seems, if you ask me, it would seem like the shift has gone from away from theaters altogether and strictly to streaming. Now, my belief is that your big budget, superhero movies, big budget blockbuster movies, they'll still have a theatrical release, but most other films are going to go straight to VOD, if not streaming, because that's where your money's at now. The amount of subscriptions you're getting every single month is what they're going to start banking on, or the fact that you can video on demand the movie early, and then when it comes to streaming, then you can just watch it whenever you please. But now it's a matter of keeping your subscribers happy and keeping them subscribing to your streaming service. And so I think theaters are going to have to change their whole tactic on how they bring customers in, because, I mean, let's face it, if I had the option to watch, and believe me, I love going to the theater, but if I had the option to watch, the Batman versus Deathstroke, either in the theater or at home, there's a lot of people that are going to say, you know what, I'll rather watch it at home on my 65-inch LED with my surround sound, and I don't have to go anywhere. I could stay home.
Exactly.
And so that's what, when you look back at all the different cuts that are coming out now, right? You're looking at a revival of not only Dexter, but now we're seeing that Coming to America 2, which is a great movie coming to America, but that's being bought by Amazon. I mean,
I was so surprised that Paramount sold that to Amazon. I mean, I don't know, because now Coming to America is a franchise, and obviously they have the original. So it's. I wonder if Amazon only gets it. Like, sometimes you sell a movie to a distributor, or you give a movie to a distribution company for a certain amount of time, and then it reverts back to being part of the Paramount library. I don't know.
So we'll know that, Robert, when it comes out, if it says Netflix presents.
Right.
Then we'll know.
Amazon Prime.
We'll know different.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Amazon Prime presents.
And honestly, I feel like, once the deal is done, if the movie itself, if the characters could talk, this is what they would say.
Behold, Simi, life, real life, a thing that we have been denied for far too long. Good morning, my neighbors! Hey, fuck you! Yes! Yes! Fuck you, too!
It's going to be great, and the fact that it's going to be on Prime, I think, is a perfect choice for it. And to have the option to stream that kind of movie is to me, that's where your money's at this point.
Well, I think what a lot of people forget is to market a movie now on a global scale costs tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Like they said, I think the last James Spectre cost over 200 million to market.
Yeah.
Well, when you put a movie on streaming, you don't have to pay marketing money at all.
Well, how much marketing money do you think WB saved or Warner Media saved with the Snyder Cut? I mean, look, I'm marketing the movie right now.
We did it. We did it for the Snyder Cut. We did it.
Tens of millions of dollars they saved just because the fandom was so excited to see it. It's incredible.
I mean, I must have done 3 shows about the Snyder Cut, and what's so funny with these fan products, they don't have to do anything because we're talking about it now. I mean, we're a year out probably from they haven't announced a date yet for the Snyder Cut, have they?
No.
Yeah, it's not dated.
And they probably won't for a while because they want you to have that excitement, that expectation, or that thought of when is it going to come out? I cannot wait.
Well, everything now is based on impressions and things you get from the internet, in terms of are people talking about things, hashtagging things, whatever. I think the Snyder Cut is going to be the biggest pre-marketing of any movie in history that they haven't had to spend a dime on.
Because the funny thing about it is, if you rate it on that scale, it's already a colossal success. It's already a hit just based off of the word. The word of mouth and the way we're all talking about it nonstop for the last 3 years.
And think about this too. There are still a number of fans out there that want to see the Snyder Cut that haven't subscribed to HBO Max because they're saying, oh, I'm going to subscribe when it comes out. Now imagine the sheer number of subscribers when that series comes out and how how much it's going to just skyrocket in terms of their
Well,
subscriber
they got
numbers.
a big boost. They got a big boost in subscriptions.
Oh, I subscribed.
I subscribed. Yeah, the day that they announced it, I went on and went ahead and subscribed, and that was before.
And you know what?
Right before HBO Max launched.
The day they announced it, Rob actually spoke out about that on the John Campea show. I remember you said you're like, hey, you told John, you're all, hey, they're doing a Man of Steel watch party right now on Vero. We might get the announcement of Zack Snyder's the Snyder cut today. I remember I was like, why? I was like, that's awesome.
Well,
he even spoke out.
Rob,
Like, hey.
could you clear something up for us? And could you tell us why it seemed like for so long that like John, it was just so like dead set against it? What was John's issue with the Snyder cut?
Well, you know what?
It's like John was a huge, but see, John was a huge Zack Snyder fan, and it just seemed like he was so against the idea of this movie coming out. At one point, he even said that Joss Whedon saved Justice League. I don't understand.
Well, I think, look, if you cover the entertainment business, if you from a business standpoint, or anybody who, in movie punditry, because John and I sometimes have disagreed on things. Like I've said some things that he didn't believe.
That's why I asked you this question.
Yeah, and they come to pass, because there's things that I said something recently that I said, I'll bet this is going to happen. And it did. I don't remember what it was, something recently, but so I think that from a business standpoint, there's never been anything like the Snyder cut. And it seemed like the way it was positioned, it seemed like such a wish fulfillment fan thing. Mm-hmm. And it probably never would have happened had not an HBO Max come along. And I think that you have to have a certain perspective of the industry to know. Like, I think one of the things that I bring to my own punditry is because I've worked in the entertainment industry for so long, that there are things that I can sit there and go, no, this could possibly happen, and I don't think John necessarily has that perspective. So he's just like, oh, this isn't going to happen. It wasn't that he wouldn't have wanted it to happen, but I think from his perspective, and I think a lot of people, and me too, I just didn't see how it could happen. And when you
see, you were taking into consideration a lot of things like the money, like your whole thing has always been, where's the money going to come from? And that was
who's going to pay?
Who's going to pay for it? That was always the difference.
See, and the one thing about Zack Snyder that a lot of people, and I would bring this up to John, I'm like, Zack Snyder has a history of multiple cuts, Watchmen being a prime example. There's 3 cuts of Watchmen, and he got Warner Brothers to pay for his ultimate cut, where you have the Tales of the Black Freighter animated sequences. Mm-hmm. None of that. Somebody had to pay for that, and that was because Warner Home Video, they knew they ran their numbers, and they figured, okay, well, Watchmen's a big deal, and it didn't perform theatrically as well as we'd hoped. So
there it is.
There it is.
What's funny is that actually last night, my brother-in-law, who's hanging out with us, I asked him, I said, have you seen Watchmen? He's like, no, I've never seen it. I was like, well, we got to watch it. So I have HBO Max. And so we watched, I want to say it's whatever version they have.
They have the theatrical
cut. And what's funny is that after it was over, he loved the movie. I mean, he was super into it the entire time. He's saying, I think it's him, but at the end, I said, "Yeah, and guess what?" I go, "There's like an ultimate edition of the movie, and it's like, how long is it? Like 4 hours long, I want to say, or
it's over 3.
Yeah,
it's over 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, I'm all. There's like actually 2 more cuts of this movie. He was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah," because it's really just an amazing movie. But to me, I still believe that Watchmen was ahead of its time. I don't think people were ready for that type of story to be told, because I think that when they went to go see it, a lot of people thought that it was going to be like your traditional superhero movie. Sort of what we've seen.
There were a lot of scripts back in the day for Watchmen.
Yeah,
but the thing is that they didn't know the Watchmen story.
They had it more of a traditional story. Yeah,
right. But the Watchmen story itself, if you don't know the story, I mean, going back and watching it last night, especially, I was like, you know what? If I didn't know the background of the whole Watchmen story, I would have been thrown off too. I'd have been like, hey, what's going on? And I'm looking at it from that point of view. But it's such a good movie. It's so well done. I absolutely love and adore that movie.
We can't forget that it was said a gazillion times that this graphic novel cannot be made into a movie whatsoever. Like everybody said,
right? Zack Snyder filmed the unfilmable. Remember that argument? Robert, that it was an unfilmable movie.
You
know, I'd read a number of drafts of that script, but it was the Alex C draft that I read. I'm like, this works. It was the first time that I was, he wrote it with David Hayter as credit on it too. But that Alex C draft, I was like, this they could make this, because I'm a huge Watchmen acolyte. I mean, I've read Watchmen 50 times. And I read it when it was coming out, and it blew my mind when I was reading it, because the mid 80s was, for me, the mid 80s to the mid 90s were my peak comic book reading time, because I was there when I really started reading comics in 83. And there was this huge comic renaissance that was going on. Frank Miller's Ronin had come out. The direct sale market had started, I think, in 81. And Marvel had like Khazar, Moon Knight, and Micronauts were the first direct sale books they had. So I started going, I had to ride the bus because I was a kid. I rode the bus every Wednesday or Tuesday back then. It was Tuesday back then. And comics would come out, and I had to take 2 buses to get to the comic book store. And I was really into it. And then starting in 84, 85, 86 is when things like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and Secret Wars and everything started to change, and superhero comics really went through this renaissance. And then John Byrne started with Superman 1, and George Perez took over Wonder Woman, and there was all of this. Superhero comics were really exciting, and there was a lot of stuff coming out, and that's when Watchmen came out smack dab in the middle of all of that. And it was amazing to be reading comics, especially superhero comics. There was a lot of independent comics too, like First Comics putting out things like John Sable Freelance that Mike Grell did, and American Flag, which is still one of my favorite comics ever. And it was just a fascinating time. And when Watchmen came out, it was really mind-blowing to read, especially because DC was putting it out, and it was that's why I loved it so much. And to see the movie, I think Zack Snyder did a great recreation of Watchmen, but not as strong of an adaptation as I would have liked to see. And I think part of that is due to the fact that, when the comic came out, it was very much of its time. And the idea that, say, Richard Nixon was in his 4th term as president, if you were alive in 85, well, that made sense because, you probably lived through Watergate and Nixon resigning and all that. And the Cold War was at its height, in the mid 80s. But when he adapted Watchmen, I kind of think that a lot of people, there's a lot of elements of Watchmen that weren't updated because he wanted to stay true to the graphic novel. And I think that sort of in a way hampered the movie, because you're looking at this going, why is Richard Nixon president? What is that supposed to mean to me? And it doesn't mean things to people. And I think that it could have been updated a lot, but then again, Zack Snyder wasn't going to do that because he wanted to stay true to the text. And I think that Watchmen is an example of I love watching Watchmen. I love seeing those characters. I love seeing the scenes. I mean, that opening scene when spoiler alert, Ozymandias beats the shit out of the comedian. That's right. That's right out of the. I was sitting there in the theater. I'm like, I can't believe I'm not only seeing this sequence, I can't believe I'm seeing it exactly the way I've read for the last. I mean,
so accurate.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And the way they did everything, even the smiley face pin landing on this. It was just, you can't have not like. So that's why I loved watching the movie. If this makes any sense, I love Watchmen, but I wanted it to be better. If that makes any sense at all.
That makes sense. That does. Because
having the opportunity to talk to Richard Citrone, who was a part of that scene, who played Ozymandias in that fight scene, because he's all, you can't see who he is in that scene. But just talking to him about how they went through the choreography of that scene and how he almost punched Jeffrey D. Morgan in the face.
Jeffrey D. Morgan in the face. Yeah.
He almost kneed him in the face. because he did the routine wrong, and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" And we got a chance to talk to him on the Foreign Earth show, which is usually on Thursdays at 7:30 Eastern, and it moves around from ACS to Zebrafet to Nerdy Many Ways channel.
Yeah, Dawson.
But that was a great episode that we did, and just learning just the ins and outs of that scene that he went through. I mean, it's really so good.
Let me ask you real quick, Robert. But don't mean to cut you off. What did you think about what is my opinion probably the best movie intro I've ever seen in my entire life? Watchmen's intro, the way they give you sort of a history lesson.
Oh, you mean the opening credits?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the opening credits. Yes, when oh shit, what's the song?
Bob Dylan.
The times are changing. Yo, what did you think about that? That's
dude. They released that before the movie came out. They released that credit sequence on YouTube, and I was like, when I saw that, I was like, this is, I mean, truly a genius move. And the way that was, when I was watching that, I'm like, oh my God, the sensibility there. I'm like, one of the things I think about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker is his visual sense. He comes up with these things that are amazing. Like he really knows how to, like, intellectually, I don't think certain things are as deep as I would want them to be. Mm-hmm. But from a visual standpoint, the fact that they came up with that sequence, because that's not in the comic.
No.
That was a complete conceit. And that's what I mean. In terms of adaptation. That's something that they added that wasn't in the comic, that was adapted from ideas in the comic. I would like to have seen a little bit more of that, because that was Zack Snyder's visual imagination writ large on the big screen. It was so well done. And so I would have liked to have seen more of that interpretation of the film, because one of the things that's sort of interesting to me is that, like, the Tales of the Black Freighter sequence, the animated sequences, the whole idea of the pirate comics in Watchmen was a commentary on the comic book medium themselves, because there's superheroes in the world, and that, so why would you read comic books about superheroes when they're real? That was kind of like, in our world, we read comics about superheroes because they're not real. They're not real. Whereas kids are reading about pirates because pirates might have been real at one time, but they're not real anymore. So you could read bloodthirsty graphic stories about pirates. And so all the whole Watchmen comic book is a commentary on the entire medium of comic books and us as readers. So certain things, when you're transposing them directly from the comic page into the movie, they don't really work, because they only were meant to be read on the comic book page. They're a commentary on comic books themselves. And I felt that way because, and this is going to sound a little weird, the idea that they animated the Black Freighter sequences never worked for me, because what you're doing then is you've got the kid at the newsstand reading the comics. Well, he's not watching an animated film. He's reading these single page comic books. Now you can't do that in a movie. So you'd have to make them animated. And I understand, but by making them animated, it sort of takes them out of the context of how they existed in the Watchmen story, if that makes any sense.
So would you have preferred them to, film the Black Freighter stuff in live action?
No, I don't think that should have been in the movie at all. I think that's where they should have done something. Like they did with the beginning of the credit sequence. I think that's where they should have come up with something new that was unique to the movie. And to be honest, I have no idea what that would have been. Yeah. And I think that the way that they compressed what's brilliant about the opening of Watchmen, that credit sequence, is it tells you everything you need to know about the world of superheroes as they exist across the 20th century. The fact that Dr. Manhattan was on the moon taking the picture when mankind went to the moon for the first time, or when Dr. Manhattan meets John F. Kennedy, or watching the end of Victory Europe Day when you see first, or what's the name of the not Silk Spectre, but the lesbian character who gets killed.
It's Shadow.
I forget her name.
Yeah, I forgot her name.
But recreating that famous photograph with her and the nurse that she's kissing, and you're really getting this sense of how superheroes fit into our world in a very economical, elegant way.
Yeah.
But
So
I like
you don't
how
have-
it shows, exactly how it shows how, in a sense, it's like an Elseworld where, like, hey, if they existed, this is how time may have been altered to fit them into this reality.
100%, and it's so well done, and that what that did was it truncated a lot of the backstory that the comic book deals with into a brilliant visual tone poem in just a few minutes of those credits, and you totally get where you're at now. And I think it did such a great job of that. And that's why there are things about, I find myself, I love watching The Watchmen. When I first saw it, there were things about the adaptation, but now with the passage of time, it's been 11 years since the movie came out.
It's been a while, yeah.
Now I can just sit back and admire what they did. And I really love the way the movie's cast.
It definitely was ahead of its time.
Yeah, there's only one
It was
cast
ahead of its
member.
time.
It was way ahead of its time. There's only one cast member whose performance I don't like. I really love this actor. No,
Silhouette was the name of the
Silhouette.
character.
That's right.
Yeah.
Silhouette. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't like Matthew Good as Ozymandias.
Really?
I don't, because the way I had always read Ozymandias is that he's this gregarious guy. Like, hey, somebody once said when they were going to do Watchmen that Tom Cruise was going to play Ozymandias, and I'm like, that's a good idea, because as a captain of industry, I always saw him as this big, brash, smiling guy. Like, how you doing? Here's let's have a photo op. I mean, Matthew Good seems like he's on another planet the whole time. The way he's
he does. Yeah,
and the whole point is you cannot possibly believe that Ozymandias is behind this. And I always, when I'm like, when I first saw the movie, I'm like, Matthew Good is playing him as somebody who's clearly hiding something. I like the way he looked. I liked his costume and all that.
he's clearly hiding something.
He's clearly, I'm like, dude, he should be the last guy that you suspect.
He's the main guy you do suspect about the entire film.
Yeah, throughout the entire film.
Yeah, I mean, and I read the story. I read into the story, but like last night, because it's so fresh in my mind, my brother-in-law, the whole time he kept asking, he's like, I think it's that guy, Ozzy.
Yeah. Well, that's because I have to tell you, the most shocking. There are two things in my life that shocked me to my very core when I was reading comic books. The first was when Tara is revealed as a traitor in the New Teen Titans. I could not believe she was working for the Terminator when you find out leading up to the Judas contract storyline. It blew my young mind. I was like 14 or 15 or something. I was like, no way, because I thought I was too cool for school. I was like, I literally couldn't believe it. I was so blown away that she was revealed to be working with Slade Wilson. I was. The next time was the end of Watchmen 11, when Ozymandias gives his speech. And he says in the comic, he's like, I'm not some Republic serial villain, Dan, because the Republic serials were like from the 40s. Like that's the Adventures of Captain Marvel from the 40s. Republic was a film company like Paramount. I'm not some Republic serial villain, Dan. Do you think that I would explain my master plan if there was any chance that you could affect its outcome? And then you turn the page, and it's the last page of 11. And he says, I did it. I don't remember the actual number. I did it 38 minutes ago, meaning that he already executed his plan. New York has been devastated. And you turn the page, and the last page of Watchmen 11 is you see Night Owl, and you see Rorschach, and you see the look on Night Owl's face. And then the rest of the page is just white. You see all these white. It just fades to white, like the snow is blown, because they can't believe it either.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that comic going, oh, holy shit. Like I couldn't, because this thing was coming out. It caused such a stir, and it was so in depth and everything. And I could not believe, because I was I was a pretty astute reader. I read a lot of books and mysteries and horror and science fiction, and I always thought I was ahead of everything, you know. And when I got to the end of Watchmen 11, I was stunned. The word gobsmacked comes to mind. We don't use that much in America, but gobsmacked is exactly what I was. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, I remember telling my mom, like running downstairs and trying to explain to my mom what just happened. And I think I was home because Watchmen came out. I was in college. And I would come and get my comics on the weekends because I went to the Evergreen State Colleges before I was at USC. And so I worked in Seattle on the weekends. And so I'd come in and get my comics. And I remember running down and trying to explain to my mom. My mom's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "You don't understand, Mom. This is insane. I can't believe it." Like, who could you tell? You couldn't tell. Like I couldn't, even back then. I mean, I even had girlfriends and stuff, but it's not like I could explain. You're not going to believe what happened. This is incredible. And
they're gonna be like, "That's great." Yeah.
And my mom's like that. Well, I'm glad Bobby, I'm glad that's good. You liked it. My mom had, and I'm just, because who could you tell?
Answer, okay.
It was such a funny thing because, when you're a fan of this stuff and nowadays everybody's a fan. Like I always talk on my channel that we are in the post-geek singularity. And what I mean by that is there's this guy, Ray Kurzweil, who wrote a book called The Coming Singularity about when AI achieves sentience and self-awareness.
Yes. That's where you got that from?
Yes.
Brilliant.
So that's where I got that from. So the idea is that we live in the post-geek singularity where in 1986 or whenever, I think Watchmen 11 came out in 86, not everybody was a geek. And there were very few people I knew that I could even mention Watchmen to that would even care.
Yeah.
Well, now the world has changed and everybody's a geek. Big Bang Theory was one of the biggest shows on TV. So nowadays, if I were to talk about the end of Watchmen, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I know what you mean." I mean, now Watchmen was the sequel to the comic won how many Emmy Awards? So everybody knows. So I came up with this phrase, the post-geek singularity, where nowadays I can tell anybody any of these things and they're all like, "Oh yeah." But I grew up in a world where I was so into it and none of my friends were. I mean, I had friends that liked movies, but like I was, my friend Steve Melching called me Watu, the Watcher, because I was so into all this stuff, whether it's books or comics but there was nobody to talk to. So I just shut up. I had nobody to talk to about any of this stuff because, and when stuff like that would happen, I couldn't call my friends and go, have you read the end? I mean, nowadays it's like, "Oh my God, did you see that episode of The Boys, what Homelander did to that jetliner?" Like, yes, everybody saw that. And nowadays we live in the post-geek singularity where everybody knows. But when I was a teenager and in college, nobody knew. And I felt I was walking around in a perpetual state of excitement, wanting to talk about all this stuff, and there was nobody to talk to.
It makes you wonder, Rob, if back then people really were closeted fans of this stuff, but just never really were open about it. And now, because now you see how, like you said, nowadays everybody knows what you're talking about. So it's bizarre, but
and so that generation and growing up using our imagination, being so hooked in the comics, and as we got older, and now that generation is there making these movies, making these productions. Now that imagination that they once used by themselves or with their friends is now being displayed in movies and in shows all around the world, and it's incredible now. And we've reached that point where now we are making these stories come to life. In a sense, generational. We are creating these stories for everyone to experience because for the longest time I had to create these stories in my head, or if I read them in the comic book, or if I saw them in a movie. But now we're at that point where these stories are being told in such a revolutionary way, and it's we always said it's an amazing time to be a DC fan. It's an amazing time to be a fan in general.
I mean, if you look at the things that we're getting in terms of, like, when I was growing up, if you got one science fiction show on TV or something, fantasy, it was a win. Nowadays, I look at the stuff that's on TV. You've got an alternate history of the space program with For All Mankind on Apple Plus. You've got Carnival Row. You've got The Boys. You've got The Magicians. The Lord of the Rings. There's a million.
Raised by Wolves.
I cannot believe how much science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I mean, hell, Hulu dropped Brandon Braga's Books of Blood movie based on the Clive Barker stuff. I can't believe how great we have it and how much of it. Like before, you'd get a show like Manimal. A guy turns it in and you're like,
Animal.
wow, I can't wait to see it. And you'd watch it and it would be pretty terrible, but you'd watch it anyway because it was the only vaguely science fiction fantasy show.
It was terrible, but you're like,
or after Tron came out, we got Automan. I'm like, okay, fuck, I guess I'll watch that. And
that's all you got. You're like, well,
and they would always get canceled. These shows would always get canceled
always
after
canceled.
half a season,
one season, and then it would end on a cliffhanger, and you never get to see what happened because it was like, oh, I guess that's it.
I mean, if you told my 10-year-old self that when I was a middle-aged man, I could watch a superhero with heat vision cut a soldier in half, like in the last episode of The Boys, and you watched the person's body come apart like this, I would have been like, get out of town. They're never going to show that on TV. Or earlier in the season, when Homelander fantasizes that he uses his heat vision and kills the hundreds of people at the rally.
I was like, whoa!
And I'm like, the fact that we live in a world now where you can see that, I'll bet you, if Man of Steel came out after people had seen The Boys, they would have had no problem at all with Superman killing Zod.
Yes, because
they would have been like, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've said it before many times is that's why, just like Watchmen, BVS was ahead of its time in the sense that a lot of people didn't understand the aspect of why does Batman want to kill Superman? Why does he see him as a threat? And people didn't get that. And then when The Boys came out, I remember telling my wife, I go, hey, because she watched it, she loved it. And I said, now look, when you think back to when we watched BVS, do you now understand why Bruce felt that way towards Superman? Because look at Homelander. Okay, and Homelander is a mild version of what Superman is going to be under the control of Darkseid. Because I mean, he's still and he has that equation. So here's Homelander, who's a narcissistic sociopath who's running around doing whatever he wants to do, and he's a homicidal maniac. So imagine if you're Bruce Wayne and you've had these visions of seeing an evil Superman running around killing people. Yeah, you're gonna be like, dude, I have to kill this guy. I have to stop him. That's why he even said this will be my legacy, because in his eyes, he's saving humanity.
Absolutely correct. Now, what's interesting to me is I think the more of this material that you've been exposed to, the more, because people don't read much anymore. They don't read I still read, as you can see, I'm surrounded by thousands of books. I mean, I read a lot of stuff. And there was,
look at all those books.
I know, there's
DVDs,
and they're all around me too. I'm surrounded. But one of the things, like in Miracle Man, the comic book Miracle Man, I think Eclipse put it out. That was a British comic that Alan Moore wrote, and it's basically a riff on both Superman and the Shazam, the Captain Marvel, the DC Captain Marvel mythos. Well, there is a superhero battle in issue 15 of that comic, and the superheroic villain, or the supervillain, goes to London and basically starts killing thousands of people, and he wants Miracle Man to come to fight him. He's slaughtering people and putting their heads on pikes, and like it is because it's if a superpowered villain who had no empathy for human beings would suddenly do this kind of thing, this is what's possible. Now, they would never show this to you in a DC or Marvel comic book, but in this comic book Alan Moore was writing, he's writing, well, what if this were about a real supervillain who had no empathy, who had no problem, killing people en masse, and he's literally slaughtering people and putting their heads on pikes. So I had read that. I read Miracle. I loved Alan Moore's Miracle Man run. It's been republished by Marvel, but they can't use Alan Moore's name, so it just says by the author, or by the writer, by the writer. And you can get. I highly recommend his Miracle Man run because it's one of my favorite superhero runs ever. But once you've read Miracle Man 15. And you've seen a superhero and a supervillain portrayed that way, that a supervillain could cause that much carnage and kill that many people, then the idea that Superman, after I read Miracle Man 15, of course Superman would wind up in situations where he would have to kill. Like it never. So when I would hear all these people object to Superman killing, I'm like, you guys never read Miracle Man 15. You know, they never saw what Zod would have done, because I always imagined that if Zod got away with it, he would have just started killing people and putting their heads on pikes until the son of Jor-El.
Yeah.
He would have done that, because if that's what's going on. I mean, yeah, he put a world engine in Metropolis and one down in India. What do you think the world engines would have done if they got up to full power? They would have been, I mean, thousands and thousands and millions of people, billions of people would have died.
Yeah. Yep.
Billions of people. I mean, and it's true. I mean, and he establishes his character in Man of Steel very early on. I mean, in that opening scene, you know what his motives are. You know how he feels. Like he's established so well, especially in this scene right here, which is one of my favorite scenes of all of the entire movie, Man of Steel. This is probably my favorite scene. There's so many of them, but this is my favorite one.
I will find him!
That whole scene there is incredible. And before we move on any further, let me invite our last guest tonight, which is a good friend of the show, a good friend of all three of us, Mr. Dawson Weidrich of Nerdy in Many Ways.
Hey guys.
What's up?
Hello there.
Hey, Dawson, what's up, man?
Here, we'll put Robert right in the middle. There we go.
Your microphone is off.
Oh, hold on.
And Robert, we had some questions that some of the fans wanted to ask you, so we'll take a few minutes and go to those.
We should start the show now.
Yeah, let's start the show now. Okay, here we go.
Honestly, this show has been great. It's been fantastic.
Okay, you guys, let's go and start the show. I'm just 2 hours into it. Yeah, go ahead, Dawson. What were you saying?
Well, you guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Can you guys? Okay, cool.
So the
well, anyway,
question...
hi Joseph. Good to see you again.
You're all good. Yeah.
Hello. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
So the first question that we have is from
your background is so tasteful.
Oh, thank you.
You have a very tasteful room there. I like very, very, very adult, much more adult than my toy box that looks like I'm an 8-year-old.
I'm an 8-year-old.
Well, to be fair, I have a lot of toys here too, and I'm still building that. So it might look like that by the time I, turn 30 or something, but we'll see.
So the first question we have is from our good friend of the show, username, you can call me Joker, so we call him Joker. He starts off by saying, hello, Robert. First of all, thanks for coming on Nickatina's show. It's a real honor. Then he writes,
the honor's all mine.
Thank you. Do you think that we'll ever get to see an old style live action director like John Frankenheimer, how do you say his last name? McTiernan or David Lynch again?
Well, that's a really good question. John Frankenheimer passed away. So he's, and by the way, I'm a huge John Frankenheimer fan. His output in the 60s, he made some of my favorite movies: 7 Days in May, The Train, The Manchurian Candidate, which everybody should watch. A movie called, a science fiction movie called Seconds, Birdman of Alcatraz. I mean, he was killing it in the 60s. John McTiernan, it's kind of sad. He went to jail because he got this Anthony Pellicano case. It's really interesting. And he, since he's been out, he hasn't directed. And Hunt for October and Predator, and he's done so Die Hard. I would love to see John McTiernan come back and make another movie. I mean, Frankenheimer had a career renaissance when he started doing HBO miniseries, back in like the 80s, starting in the 80s and the 90s. And I would love to see McTiernan come back and direct again, because I think he has an incredible eye. I don't know if he's lost it or he even wants to come back and direct, but I would love to see that happen. David Lynch, again, he did his Twin Peaks, the Twin Peaks: The Return. I don't know if he'll ever do another movie again. I mean, I would love to see him do another movie again. And maybe he could. I don't know. I mean, I think the great thing about streaming services and the money they have is because they don't have to pay for marketing and they don't have to necessarily worry about box office. Bringing a David Lynch in is a possibility to make a film. I'd love to see him do, like, he was going to make this mythical movie a long time ago called Ronnie Rocket. Now, I don't know if he has any interest in actually making that and seeing it through, but I would love to see him come back and do a Ronnie Rocket or something like that.
Well, I mean, just imagine, if you were to go back in time and tell any one of us at the age of 5, 8, 10, saying, hey, guess what? When you get older, there's going to be multiple streaming services where you get an entire gigantic library of movies and TV shows that you can watch whenever you want to for you know, can you imagine?
Dude, you know, I always laugh. I tell people this. I'm like, if you went back 20 years ago and told me that they would make an Avengers movie, I'm like, they're not going to make, you know what? I would say to people, I'm like, they can't make an Avengers movie. The only way they're going to do, you'd have to make a movie about Iron Man, and then a movie about Thor, and then a movie about like Captain America. You'd have to do that first before you made an Avengers movie, and they're never going to do that.
Robert, do they have to go to see? Does Marvel have to go to Secret Wars now in order to keep the momentum?
I have to tell you, I kind of want to see the Beyonder.
Yeah, I think
I
Secret Wars is the way to go. I mean, that's how you can integrate all these different. Because I mean, think about bringing all those elements together. You're talking about X-Men. You're talking about the Avengers. All, you know.
I don't know, because look, I think what they're doing, whatever they're doing with this multiverse business, you know, they're talking about bringing Kang in, and Kang is a time traveling villain all the way, Ramatep, all the way back to Egyptian times, you know, and you know who exists in back then is Apocalypse, the first mutant. And it's well, maybe not. She's the second mutant. There's one, somebody pointed out to me the other day that there's Serena, some other mutant that I forgot about.
There was one that was before Apocalypse, but originally he was the first mutant.
Yeah, to me that was retconned later. Apocalypse is
he originally he was the first mutant, and I'll tell you right now, the Apocalypse that we got, that was not. They did not do Apocalypse justice in the movie X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah,
that was so not what I wanted to see out of Apocalypse, because he's such a grander.
Although I did like
villain.
the opening of X-Men Apocalypse a lot, seeing what happened in ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
That element was really cool, but the way they portrayed his character, I just it wasn't for me. He had to be. I needed more.
He was too small.
He was too small.
I think now they would.
He was done better. He was done better in the X-Men animated series.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah.
And I always felt, sorry to cut you off, I always felt that his character portrayal should have been more closely to what like in the movie Legend, the villain
Tim Curry, Darkness, Tim Curry's Darkness.
Exactly. So that portrayal of darkness, that's how I always envisioned not Dark Side, Apocalypse. You know, kind of having that old world feel to him in the way he speaks, because he's been alive for so long.
Well, I mean, if like Bryan Singer went back and did it, he would do Apocalypse the way they did Thanos. You know, I think it would be all CG, and they would have a more of, you know, because that's another thing, man. Talk about living in the post-geek singularity. I could not believe how they pulled Thanos off. I mean, so good. The color of his skin. I'm like, how are they going to make people believe in that purple ball sack on his face? I mean, come on.
And the way they made, like, I've been watching these VFX channels all day, and they talked about Thanos and how they made the pores stretch in the face and condense with like how actual skin works.
He looks amazing.
He looks fantastic. And with the mocap performance with Josh Brolin was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and who would have thought? You know, it's funny. I worked on doing the special features for the Lord of the Rings discs back in the day, the extended versions. And one of the things that I did was I interviewed almost everybody involved with the creation of Gollum for the Two Towers disc. And one of the things that was really interesting is there was something called subsurface scattering, and what that is our skin is not solid; it's not opaque.
Right.
There's light in it. You can see our veins in it, and there's multi-layers of skin. And one of the problems they had when they were trying to come up with how they're going to do Gollum is with computer-generated effects, they had no way to render skin like that. It was always solid. So they actually had to figure out a program to recreate the subsurface scattering of the way light works inside our skin. They didn't know how to do that. And to watch over the last 20 years as computer technology, computer animation, working with mocap and getting to the place where Thanos, you can get as close into his face as possible. And he's absolutely convincing, you know, and you look at that and you're like, my God, if they can do that, they really can. I mean, I remember in '93 when I first saw the brachiosaur in Jurassic Park take the lead from the top of the tree. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like Star Wars was mind blowing when I saw it when it first opened, because no one had ever seen anything like it. And seeing photorealistic dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, I felt the same way. I'm like, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
That was an incredible scene, especially when it stands up on its hind legs and pulls the branch off.
Yeah, that moment. It's the moment where Sam Neill, takes off his shaking and takes off his glasses and gets up. The great Spielberg moment where somebody's eyes are going wide.
Yeah, but it's such a simple action from the dinosaur, but it's such on an incredible scale.
Absolutely real.
And I love they brought up the Gollum from the Lord of the Rings, because I was learning about this week. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I heard, but again, you can correct me because you worked on that. But what I heard is that in the original Lord of the Rings movies, when they did Gollum, they didn't have that face like mocap for the face at that time. So they'd have to have Andy Serkis' performance and all animated all by hand and try to match it up with his performance.
Yeah, what they did, what's really interesting is, and if you talk to a guy named Randall Cook, he'll tell you this, but they had his performance, but they didn't quite yet. They still had to animate the face to match, and they had to make all of that. Like, when people's faces move, there's all kinds of different muscles, and they had to go in and hand animate that shit. The eyes and they had to build the actual, like, the face and how the muscles would pull on things, and they had his performance, so they had his vocal performance, and they knew, my precious whatever. But then they had to go in and hand animate. So a lot of people back then, there was a lot of resentment because people thought, it was just slapped on Andy's performance. No, they had to recreate Andy's performance in animation. Now you use mocap. They didn't have mocap like that.
It made The Hobbit that much easier to get Gollum in that case.
Much easier. And speaking of Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson, who's the director of that movie, here's another question by Joker, which is, what do you think on Peter Jackson as the next visionary for Star Wars? Could he save the franchise if he were given the opportunity?
You're asking me?
Yeah, these are all for you.
Yeah.
But we'll all chime in with our answers as well.
I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, Peter Jackson is obviously a great filmmaker, but what you need, what Star Wars needs? It needs a Ryan Coogler. You need somebody, and I think in a way, The Mandalorian has some of that in Jon Favreau. Like, I don't think The Mandalorian season 1 is necessarily as genius as everybody thinks it is. I mean, I liked it a lot, but there's a lot about it that I thought it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, why are there Jawas all over the place? There's Jawas that aren't on Tatooine. Like, is there people that fly sand crawlers around? Do Jawas only? Do Jawas are there Jawas on Coruscant? Like, why do Jawas
wherever there's sand, there's Jawas?
Yeah, that kind of seemed. There's things like that were weird to me, and like this town that the Mandalorian with in the Mandalorian, there's like a one street town where there's the Imperials up there, and there's the Mandalorians with their underground. Like, it's just like one town. Like, why are the Mandalorians not off?
It's like a theme park, crazy... where like, now I'm in Imperial Town, now I'm in the Mandalorian Town. You know what I mean?
Like Chinatown and
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it just, that kind of stuff seemed odd to me. Just that it was just a function of how it was done. But I still liked it a lot, and you still had a vision of the Star Wars universe that was being brought to us that people liked. But I do think you need a visionary, somebody who really grew up and loves Star Wars, but is also a world-class filmmaker to come in. I mean, I think the problem is, here's the way I see it. There's a problem with all of our franchises. The franchises, Star Trek was really it began as the vision of one man. Star Wars began as the vision of one man. Yeah. And it all sprung from there. Even I was talking about this on my own show the other day, the shirt sleeves to shirt tails idea, in that the first person that makes something, creates something, you roll up your sleeves and you get in there and you make it. Mm-hmm. And then the second generation is trying to uphold the legacy of the person that made the original. So in the case of Star Trek, you had Gene Roddenberry, and then the people that took over, like Nicholas Meyer and then Rick Berman, who produced Star Trek up through 2005, they were all part of that next generation that were still trying to uphold the ideals and what Gene Roddenberry was doing. And then the third generation comes in and they have no interest in that. They just want to do their own thing. And they change it around and they move it around. And in the case of Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, they're now owned by corporations. And so the stories themselves are not what comes first. The characters and stories don't come first. What comes first are the corporate interests of, we have to sell this to the most amount of people, the largest common denominator. It has to work for our theme parks, for merchandising. It has to work across all of our platforms. And so what you're going to do, we have to appeal to the widest amount of people. Well, when you think in those kind of terms, what you're doing is you're ruining all of these things. Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, they all worked in the first place. They all developed a fan base because they were true to themselves. You know, the franchises were true to themselves. And in the case of right now, the only franchise I think that's being true to itself is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because you had one producer at the top, Kevin Feige, who came out of he made 13 Marvel movies. He worked on 13 Marvel movies before the MCU, and he gets it. He's like, we're going to go back. The comic books are already there. So we might not adapt the comic books exactly, but if I'm going to do Winter Soldier, Ed Brubaker wrote the Winter Soldier run. It's right there. I've already got it. That was
Winter Soldier, great, fabulous movie.
It was already successful. Yeah. So I'm going to go, or Age of Ultron, or any number of things. I'm going to go find my inspiration with the things that already work in the comics medium, and we're going to translate them. Civil War. It might not have been exactly Civil War, but they called it Civil War, and the central idea of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers being at loggerheads was great. And they extrapolate from there, and they make changes. The details are different, but the meaning of the story is the same. Well, with Star Wars, Disney bought Star Wars, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with it.
They didn't. I mean, their immediate announcement was that we're going to have a movie out by next year. I remember as soon as they bought it, they announced a new Star Wars will be coming out next year. And I thought, how's that possible?
Well, I mean, what they don't understand is, okay, let's run this down. So as we all are, if any of us were in a room, right? And say you're in the room with Disney execs and they say to you, okay, this movie takes place 30 years after Return of the Jedi. What would be, I'm giving you all a test now. This movie's going to take place 30 years after Return of the Jedi. What is this movie going to be about? And who are our main characters going to be?
Well, Luke, Han, and Leia. Luke, Han, and Leia.
Exactly.
Boom. There you go.
Yeah.
And you know what? The answer to that at the corporate level at Disney is, you can't make it about them. They're in their 60s.
They're too old.
They're too old. I mean, we have to get the kids. You can't make a movie about people in their 60s.
But see, that's my thing.
What isn't understood, though, what the thinking, and this is the problem with all these franchises. The thinking is that, like, it doesn't matter if you're 8 or 80. If you're a Star Wars fan and you're telling somebody that they're going to make a movie 30 years after that's set 30 years after Return of the Jedi, every single person would have said to you, well, I want to know what happened to Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, R2, 3PO. Where are they at now?
Right. And even with like the execs, like they could have easily like looked at the books that came out and said like, oh, there is some younger characters they introduced, like Mara Jade, for example, like introduce those people along with the older characters.
It's already there.
Yeah,
it's already all there. It's already been done and done well.
And you can apply the same. You can apply the same statement to Star Trek as well, Robert.
Absolutely. And it's mind-boggling to me. It is mind-boggling to me that you have a guy like Kevin Feige who did just that. I'm going to start the MCU, and you know what? I'm going to take all my cues, like World War II, introducing Captain America during World War II. He didn't introduce Captain America today. He made a movie about Captain America fighting in World War II against the Red Skull and Hydra. Like, do you know how many?
But that's what you had to do, though, in order to establish his character, and he understood that.
But that's what we all get. But do you think that anybody in a corporate boardroom, do you think if Kevin Feige hadn't, the Marvel Cinematic Universe started at Paramount and Disney acquired Marvel. So it started over. Can you imagine if the corporate overlords, like if it was Warner Brothers and somebody said, and say Marvel was at Warner Brothers, the executives would never have let them make. The only reason Wonder Woman was able to be set in World War I was because of Captain America.
Yeah.
If Captain America had not been a period piece, Wonder Woman, they never would have let them make a World War I set Wonder Woman movie.
I fully agree. I feel
They never would have done it.
When they
Wonder
said
Woman would have been in Afghanistan.
Yeah, or yes, or
Yeah, you know,
she would have been in the modern day, and that is the difference. You know, the people that took over, for instance, say Star Trek. Kurtzman worked on the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, but you see that great Jon Stewart clip where Jon Stewart had J.J. Abrams on Jon Stewart on the Jon Stewart show and on the late show, Jon Stewart show, where J.J. Abrams says, "I didn't like Star Trek. It was too intellectual for me. Never liked it growing up." Well, you know what? That's why you made. I won't use what I really think of those movies. I'm not a fan of them, but it's like, how do you hire somebody that flat out just admits I was never a fan?
Yeah, how do you go that route? I mean,
because at the corporate level, J.J. Abrams is a successful television producer. He worked in their sandbox with Mission Impossible 3. You know, it's like, okay, and Bad Robot has great infrastructure. They're liked around town, at least in the TV area. And so from a corporate standpoint, he's a safe hire. Problem is
that, like, a creative standpoint, like if you're creating something that you're not a fan of, I feel like that's just incredibly difficult. Because, like, for me personally, when I do projects,
then
like,
you're just trying to recreate it, and that's all you're trying to do.
And also, you're just working on something you don't love. And if you don't love something, you're not going to do your best work with it. Like, if I didn't love the comics that I do, I wouldn't do them straight up.
And the reason I really, 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 really hate modern Star Trek is they want to change it. Mike McMahon on Lower Decks, he loves Star Trek, but he wants to have his cake and eat it too.
And I was just going to say, Robert, it's pretty sad that we're living in a world where we got all this great stuff, and the best Star Trek that we have in the modern day right now is Lower Decks.
Lower Decks.
And that's not even that. That's not even that great, but that's the best we got.
No, and it's because they want to change it. Everybody looks at Star Trek and thinks, oh, it's old. We have to change it around. And you go back and you watch. Like, I just the other day rewatched the Lower Decks episode of Next Generation. It's a 7th season episode. There is more pathos. Like, if you looked at that as a backdoor pilot for a series, I would love to see a Lower Decks type series with that kind of emotional impact, because it's a wonderful episode of Star Trek.
Yes.
And now, to me, the problem that I have with Lower Decks is it's always breaking the fourth wall. It's just one reference after another, and it doesn't exist on its own. They're not telling me it's a pastiche of Star Trek stories wrapped in a Rick and Morty wrapper. But they're not, it doesn't exist on its own. It's not creating its own identity. It's constantly referencing other Star Treks and things like that.
And for that reason, there's reasons to love and to hate Lower Decks.
Right, exactly. And I it's funny because the idea behind it, a starship that goes on second contact missions where every single episode, presumably, you get to have a fish out of water story where you meet some wacky civilization where you don't always figure out, you don't get along, you don't understand. There's always some kind of a cross-cultural misunderstanding. To me, that's a great idea for a show. And yet they're not embracing that idea. But that's just me. But that, again, it's now the way Secret Hideout is handling it. It's just, they're just getting paid. I mean, Star Trek Discovery is one of the most expensive television shows ever made. And it's amazing to me that it's not better than it is. And the people that are writing it, it's like, have you ever read science fiction? And then they brought on Michael Chabon, who's he's a great novelist, and I really like his work. But Star Trek Picard is a horrible betrayal of that character and the ethos of Next Generation.
I have not watched Picard because I've heard only bad things about it. I've heard horrible things about it. I don't even want to expose myself to it. At that point, I'm just like, you know what? I'm good.
They almost, it was like it started off kind of cool, and then it just sort of went downhill from the first episode. Like,
right.
And the way that they decided to end it was probably the worst possible thing you could ever do in a Star Trek series. I was just like, okay.
I mean, they literally killed Data and Picard.
Yeah.
I mean,
how can you do that?
How about this, Robert? How about the idea of resurrecting Captain Picard and as an android, but making him old Patrick Stewart. Why would you want to be old and decrepit in a new body?
I have to pee.
Yeah.
And you know what's even worse is they already dealt with that in a 1966 original series episode called "What Are Little Girls Made Of?"
Yes.
About the fact that Dr. Corby is found this technology to make himself an android body and essentially live forever, and it would be monstrous. He's still not. You're not human, and it's not desirable. And if they were really clever, you have Star Trek Picard. They would reincarnate Picard as a young, a brand new, younger,
almost like how he looked in Nemesis when they had Tom Hardy play Shinzon. That's what you would expect if you're going to think of like a young. If Picard would want to be resurrected, so to speak, he's not going to want to look like old Picard. He's going to want to be younger and more.
Yeah, and virile, why would you ever want to? That does it made no sense.
It's like you're getting a second life, but you're going to have all the same problems and struggles you had.
And you're going to live the same rest of your lifespan that you would have, even if you didn't transfer. Yeah, that just was just
terrible.
But overall, though, Star Trek was the first show that introduced the concept, which a lot of sci-fi shows use now, where when you go to a planet, there's always you go there and it's a water planet, or it's a desert planet. It's a rock planet. Obviously we know, hey, look, they're only seeing one part of the planet, but yet they portray it as the whole planet's that way. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah. It's
and every show does it. Every show does it, and which is understandable because come on, you're not gonna explore every aspect of the entire planet. But so real quick, let's go to one more question from the Patreons, or the patrons, as Nerdy would correct me.
Yes,
There you go. Good
job. Jesse Allen writes, and this is kind of a changing gears, so I apologize, but if Jared Leto is to return as Joker, would he rather a Mad Love film or a solo Joker film?
Yeah, I think after seeing Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, he'd want his own movie.
Yeah,
he was in a movie. He was in a fantastic movie not a lot of people have ever heard of. It's a science fiction movie called Mr. Nobody.
Yes.
That movie is, and there's two versions of it. If you can get the longer version, isn't that a great movie?
It is. Oh my God.
I love that movie.
Mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing, and not a lot of people have seen it. I mean, it deals with alternate lives and how the road
I saw the shorter
travel.
version first and then sought out the longer version because it's
great, and he was great in it. And he's the star.
Yeah. So Dr. Fate writes, looking forward this is the question, are you looking forward to seeing Darkseid and Apocalypse, and what are his thoughts? He was sending me a question. What are your thoughts on Superman in the black suit for Justice League?
Oh, I lost my shit when I saw that picture. I mean, it's exactly the thing about, again, Zack Snyder takes a lot of his cues from the comic books themselves. 300, Watchmen, a lot of the images that he used, it was inspired by Alex Ross. I mean, and seeing Superman in that black suit, I mean, that means Hot Toys is going to make one.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I love.
I can afford it in 20 years.
He's going to be right here as soon as I can get him.
You can't afford that, Andre. Don't lie.
I can't. But if you become a Patreon, I can slowly build up my account so I can afford one.
What is it called? What is it called, Andre?
A Patreon, but it's on the Patreon website.
There you go. Good job.
Actually, you're glad that Ryan Zeberfan is not here, because he called me today and he put up a good argument about why you're wrong about that.
No, it calls them patrons on the Patreon website. So he's
we'll
wrong.
talk about that later. So let's go to the next one.
Ryan, as always, is wrong.
Rob, I agree. The Darkseid and seeing Black Suit Superman, that's going to be incredible just to have that experience.
I'm a huge. Well, I show this. Oh, I already pulled it out once on this show. Before we started, but I love the Fourth World. I love Jack Kirby's The Fourth World. I loved all of the new gods
that huge.
Yeah, I'm a huge. So to see Darkseid, like, Darkseid portrayed the same way I was excited to see Thanos, take front and center stage. And I love, Granny Goodness and I mean, Orion and Black, the Black Racer. I want to see all of the new gods portrayed, and I hope it's done well, and it tees up Ava DuVernay's New Gods movie. I mean, I want to see all of these things, so I can't wait to see Darkseid.
You really think Ava DuVernay's New Gods movie is going to happen, though?
No.
Well,
I don't either.
I don't think I mean, she did say that it's still alive in a recent
alive. It's on life support.
Still alive, but that doesn't
I know. I'm just saying that because she was announced.
There's so much change happening. I mean, there's so many things happening over there right now. So to say that that's going to come out. I mean, who knows at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought the idea that Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are coming back to be in a Flash movie. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like the coolest thing I've ever. Once you've talk about post-geek singularity. Once you've crossed into that realm, and all bets are off. Anything can happen.
Rob, that whole line of the post-geek singularity, I absolutely I love that, because it makes so much sense when you look at where we're at now. I just every time you say it, I fall in love with it all over again.
Well, I noticed it, like what it started to happen. I really noticed things starting to change because of the Sandman, Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, and the character of Death. Specifically, I noticed more girls were coming into my local comic book shop, and then in the 90s, you had a lot of. I think what really started to change was when you had more girls playing video games, girls watching anime, and all of these things started to happen. And then, of course, when social media came in the aughts, it really started to explode. And once girls were coming into comic books and video games and all that, things started to really change because you had a much bigger, obviously the audience just grew exponentially. And I watched it like Comic-Con. I've been going to Comic-Con since '88 and watching Comic-Con audiences change and multi-generations of people bringing their kids and friends of mine bringing their kids to Comic-Con. And, I met them when we were all almost teenagers and seeing them grow up, and you could see it all changing and the whole world. Once you saw, like, when all these girls getting into cosplay, and it really changed, the whole world changed, and now everybody is into it. You never there's all this stuff, like people make fun of Twilight, and it was, of course, it skewed predominantly female, the audience, but think about it. That was a book series about vampires that took the world by storm, and then followed up by the Hunger Games with Katniss Everdeen. And so you had women now had heroes the way we had Luke's. I mean, they always had Princess Leia and things like that, but you had in Twilight girls and Hunger Games taking front and center. And now it's equal. And now everybody is, and you have multi-generations of we've grown up, we've got kids. So now the world went, and it's no longer relegated to, it's not a boys thing anymore. It's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
And I watched it change over the last, 30 years. And that's why I say we live in this post-geek singularity, because that's exactly what happened.
Jesse, Jesse, we're not going to go there. Rob's thoughts on Anthony from ACS playing The Rock in a biopic. That's too it's not going to work.
Why doesn't The Rock play himself in a biopic?
Exactly.
Anthony, when you sent me that deep fake that someone made of you as Vin Diesel,
that was so good.
Rolled laughing.
So good.
Like, honestly,
I have a question. I have a question for Robert, and it's kind of off topic, but recently they just released Batman: Death in the Family.
Yes,
which is an interactive movie, choose your own adventure style thing. Have you had a chance to check that out yet?
I haven't watched it, but just like the comic, you get to vote on whether or not Robin dies, right?
And the reason I was bringing it up was because you had said earlier about being like totally in favor of physical media. That movie is the single greatest example of why physical media is superior to digital and always will be. Because if you check out the digital version of that movie, you don't get the choices. You get one standard 30-minute recap of Batman Under the Red Hood, and you don't get any of the choices of choosing the alternate paths to change Robin's fate or anything. So unless you have the physical Blu-ray, which I did buy, you do not get to see any of those alternate options. And again, physical media all the way. It's
I so love my physical media. But if you guys saw the Black Mirror special Bandersnatch, that was really cool.
They did that through Netflix.
I know,
and only certain
they can do it.
Yeah, so I don't know why they didn't do it digitally, but Warner didn't go that direction.
Well, maybe they'll try to do it on HBO Max at some point, but again, HBO Max is just starting out, and they're just starting to figure out the kinks, and they're still working on. They still don't have a skip intro thing for shows, right? Right now,
I'm kind of glad for that, because that's kind of the bane of my existence. I hate when you go on Netflix to watch a movie or a TV show and you have skip the intro and skip the credits. It's listen, I don't want to accidentally press a button and skip something that I'm actually interested in seeing.
Yeah.
So I don't think that should be there. I think that's completely
a specific example of why I would want that on HBO Max is because I'm watching Death Note per your request, Zod. And I got to episode 25, and it starts. It's the first intro song is really cool. It's nice, good rock, and it's really good melodies. But then the second intro of the show is just straight up screaming metal.
Screaming metal.
I'm
yes.
just I don't want to hear this every episode all day.
So Dawson, you've gotten that far already.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. I binged it over a couple of days.
Oh my God, that's great. That is great.
Yeah, that's one reason why I would want the skip intro button, because I don't want to hear that heavy metal every 30 minutes.
Well, I think if you watch it on Netflix, you can skip the intro.
Well, no.
I am being summoned for dinner.
Okay.
I said I'd be done by 8.
Andre, what do you
Robert, you are
that's a great
awesome as
time.
always, man.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
there were a couple things that we were gonna do, but the viewers are asking for something right now. They want to know if you would like to sit with us and watch the trailer of Zack Snyder Justice League before you go.
Hell yeah.
Okay. As I set that up, I will put up the last question of the night, which is from Gavin Cooley. He writes, we know there will be hints of the Atom character and possibly appearances by Martian Manhunter. There will be, and Green Lantern. But what other hero do you think could show up in the Snyder Cut?
Well, Green Lantern. That's a good question. Elongated Man? No, he was always gosh, I don't know. Adam maybe, but I would love it if Martian Manhunter, seeing those images of the reverse angle of Martian. I don't know who would be the other. They're talking about Hawkman being in I would love to see Kadar Hole and Hawkman or somebody like that show up. Somebody who's part of the classic Justice League lineup.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Maybe in the history lesson scenes where it's flashbacks to when Uxas came down and all the heroes came together, and maybe show one of those beings fighting with humanity or something like that, like they did in the Justice League, but better.
Yeah, no, I would love to see something like that. I loved Justice League comics. That was my favorite comic growing up, and my favorite thing is when the Justice League would every year team up with the Justice Society of America, and I couldn't get enough of that stuff. And I would, but I always liked. Look, I like Hawkman because I just like the way the character looked. A lot of people didn't like Hawkman, but I was a big Hawkman fan, so I would love to see that. And you'd think that they would have something to do with the Atlanteans or the Amazonians too. Who knows?
Right.
Oh, actually, before we...
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, it's fine. I was gonna say before we end the show, your film festival. I know you wanted to touch on that.
Oh, yes. So on our on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, it came out of a viewer, Dieter Bastian, who's become a good friend, and his partner Patrick Keller, his filmmaking partner, and Patrick's daughter Mia. They made a movie. They had this idea about making a funny movie. They shot it over a couple days or something, they sent it to me and I played it and I was like, well, this is cool. And out of the blue, as I watched it, as this is as I'm wont to do, I'm like, we should have a film festival. Now, I didn't think this. I didn't really necessarily think this idea through, but I figured, why not? And so this, and I'm like, what do you have to do for a film festival? Well, you need films, and I'm like, I wanted the film festival basically to start right away. So I'm like, okay, anybody can make a movie from now until December 1st. And I'm like, okay. And then a film festival, well, we have to have a name. So randomly, I called it the First Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseur because all of my viewers, all the members of the Post Geek Singularity are called Imagination Connoisseurs. So if you're an imagination connoisseur, you make up the Post Geek Singularity community. So I'm like, okay, we're going to call it the First Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. And the reason that I called it Intergalactic, because this is the very first film festival in history ever that's open to extraterrestrial submissions. So if anybody from outside of the planet Earth, any alien civilization, anybody, if there's aliens on Earth that have been observing us for any length of time, this is the opportunity where they can submit a film.
Oh my God. You are going to make full disclosure a reality because of your film festival.
There you go.
That's it.
My film festival. So, and I will waive the $25 entry fee.
It's a trap.
and so the first thing that we did, the first thing I did was, okay, we need a poster. Every film festival has to have a poster.
Oh,
so I said, yeah. So I just started a contest. I just, again, let's have a contest. And somebody, and I wrote down everything that needed to be on the poster, like all of this text. And I said, whoever, and I was surprised because who knows, I didn't know if anybody was going to make a poster or not. I got 60 entries.
Wow.
60 people made film festival poster entries. And I'm like, well, I could pick them, but what's the fun of that? So I said, okay, the way we're going to pick it is you guys, like John Campia, you guys are going to pick it. And so I opened up, we put if you go to my website, theburnettwork.net, for the next 18 hours, you can still vote on the poster. Now you can only vote once a day. So if you vote before midnight, you can vote. And then after midnight, you can vote again. So you can actually vote twice for your favorite entry before I pick the winner tomorrow. And so I got 60 entries. So if you go to the burnettwork.net website, and up in the top left corner, it says Film Festival. And if you click on Film Festival, there's a drop-down menu, and it says Poster Contest. And all 60 posters are up there, and you can vote on them. And then if you've ever wanted to make a movie, you can submit until December 1st. And the rules for the film festival are on the page. Just follow. There's not really many rules, but you can't make a movie like a guy made a movie about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and has a clip of Spider-Man. It's a documentary, so it's kind of it's a fictional documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I allowed that. I could have not allowed that, but I figured I'm just going to allow it. If Marvel comes after me, they can come after me, and I'll take it down. But you mostly the movie has to be pretty. You can't your music has to be original. Everything has to be original, and it has to be a universal premiere, meaning it cannot have played on Earth or any other alien worlds. It has to be a universal premiere for the film festival. And people have asked me, I claim no rights over any of the films. You own all of them. The only thing I ask is that you exclusively let me run your film on the channel through February of 2021. So we're going to give out the awards on January 1st, and there's cash prizes. Each prize is $200, and you get a trophy. And then the biggest award, the two biggest awards, the most imaginative is our award. I don't know what I'm going to call that award yet, like the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. The biggest award of our festival is the most imaginative because it's an Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. And then there's just underneath it is best film, best of the fest. And then there are other awards like we are giving away starting on Christmas Day when I announce all the semifinalists. The semifinalists then are going to be voted upon. and the semifinalists, and they can be voted upon by all the audiences, everybody out in the world. And if you win, if you get the most likes, because it'll be up on on YouTube, you win. We're giving the Sally Field Lifetime Appreciation Award, because when Sally Field won her Oscars, she said, "You like me. You really like me." So if you get the most likes,
there you go.
You win the Sally Field Lifetime Appreciation Award. But then we're also giving out award for best visual. There's best on-screen performance, best direction, best cinematography, and best editing, and best sound, best visual effects, best on-screen performance, most imaginative, best film, and then there's a couple of more awards. And then so far, we've got a great lineup of judges. The first judge that I've announced is Ashley Miller, who wrote X-Men First Class and Thor. He also was a producer on Black Sails. He worked on Fringe, and he worked on Lore for Amazon. And right now, the animated, I'm working on a Netflix animated series that debuts in March, and he created that animated series as well. I can't say what it is because it hasn't been announced yet.
Right.
So he's our first judge, but we have a lot of other filmmakers coming on board, and a lot of other, like John Campy is a judge, and there'll be other people that I'm going to be announcing over the next month and a half. And it looks like, I didn't know if we were going to get any movies. I got 2 more movies in today.
Wow.
So I will have movies will debut every day at noon if I get them. So tomorrow, a very short film, I think it's less than 2 minutes, is debuting. We had a children's music video debut today called Wear Your Mask. Wear Your Mask, about showing kids how to wear masks in the age of COVID.
Wow.
And the film's wildly diverse. I've been told that there's a lot of people who are making films, and anybody can. And if you've ever wanted to make a movie, you can. And the entry fee, the reason that we're charging an entry fee at all is because we are going to print posters, and we are going to we have to make the trophies. Yeah. So all the proceeds that we're generating from the film festival, which is really just your entry fee, are going to go to making the prizes and giving out. We're going to give them back out as cash prizes. So that's it. That's what the film festival is, and hopefully, incredible. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that's already come in. It's some of it's really amusing. There's, if you look at a movie called Wiener Kill, you can see that. If you're a stoner and you like Cheech and Chong, watch Wiener Kill. I have to say, I've watched it like 20 times. It's only like 3 minutes long.
That sounds like one of those Charles Band movies that you'd see on full moon streaming.
Well, I wish that the guys who made Wiener Kill would make a total an entire feature about themselves, because I would watch it. And they're on shrooms and they're stoned, and they're talking to each other, and then suddenly they notice there's a sausage on the table, and they're like, "Did you make that sausage?" "No, man. Did you make that sausage?" And the sausage starts talking to them. And it's very quick and very. But that was, then these people from Scotland sent in a movie called Ireland sent in a movie called Crawl Space that I was like, wow, this is really slick. So I'm curious to see what's going to come in. Mm-hmm. They're all over the place. Not one movie is like any others. They're all wildly divergent. And as people see what comes in, I would imagine the quality, people are going to start stepping up, and it depends. I don't know. And I encourage all levels of, you can be a professional and submit a movie, or you can be a first timer. I want everybody. The point is, have fun, enjoy yourself, and make something either yourself or make it with your friends. Have a good time, and I'm giving you a place to show it. And and there's going to be premieres tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I think it's great. Nice. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. Any updates or announcements that you want to put out there? Hey, send me a DM, and I obviously support anything you do because I'm a huge fan of what you do, and this sounds so cool. So
yeah, we'll see. It's funny when you decide to do something like the poster contest was so much fun because I got so many great entries, and I never really thought about the fact that, well, a film festival is only as good as films. And it's one thing to ask people to make a poster. It's an entirely different thing to ask somebody to make a movie in 2 months.
Yes.
So we'll see. I mean, people keep telling me that they are making movies, and I keep getting. I'm always surprised that there's another movie came in, and I'm like, it's like for me, it's like Christmas morning every day when I get someone's a movie in. I'm like, oh, wow, like somebody actually made a movie, and it's I love it. I love it so much, and hopefully by December 1st, I hope I have 60 different movies. I mean, that would be amazing. And then on Christmas Day, I'm gonna pre-record a show that I run on Christmas Day that announces all of the semifinalists. And then on New Year's Day, I'm gonna announce we'll do a live show. Elizabeth and I will do a live show where we announce the winners. And
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but you can still vote in the poster contest right now. You have 18 hours or something left.
There you go, guys. 18 hours.
My website, theburnettwork.net. You can see the film festival tab up on the top right on the website, and go vote. And if you go, and by the way, I'm going to leave all the posters up even after the contest is over, because I just think it's so cool that people, I'm going to leave them up forever for posterity's sake, because I was amazed. I was just amazed by the outpouring of talent and support. I mean, that was, I think, the coolest thing is, you can just make shit up, and do it. You can, and people will come. It's like Field of Dreams. People will come, Ray. Yeah. People will definitely come. And you say, hey, man, I want to have a poster contest. And if you provide people with a venue or someplace where you can celebrate their talents, there's a lot of people that might not have otherwise done something like that, but they did. They chimed in, and the posters are wildly different, and they're all different levels of skill in terms of graphic design work. But to me, I was delighted by every one of them, because every one of them represents creativity from somebody, and it was something that didn't exist. None of those posters existed until I said, hey, let's have a poster contest. And then suddenly people sat down and made something from nothing, and then they exist. And they're on my website. And now the same thing is true of these movies. People went out, and sure, there's going to be things that people were working on already, but the idea that people picked something up and created, that to me is amazing. And if nothing else, that's what I've celebrated my whole life. I've always loved the creations of other people, and I've tried to create things myself. But to be the I guess the spark that causes people to light up their own creativity and submit it and share it with the world, I mean, that's about the coolest thing I can imagine for a YouTube channel to do. So,
well, that sounds amazing, Robert. And to talk about something that that wasn't going to exist, we'll end the show with this. A look at the teaser trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Robert, thank you so much for being here. This was such an honor to have you here. It's such a great time. The stream's gone on for 3 hours. It's felt like I've only been here for an hour and a half.
I know.
Unless you're Anthony, who's starving, so.
Yes, super hungry.
Because those taquitos are fire, Anthony, aren't they?
Taquitos.
All right, you guys, here is the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. 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 I did my best, it wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah.
Let's freaking
Guys, probably
go.
hundreds of
Let's
thousands of other beings on the other planet destroyed, right? And we have to assume he's won.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
Yes. Every time.
That is Batman.
Now, Robert, if
So
you were to
good.
see that if someone were to show you that and say, "Hey, this is a trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League," would you have said? I mean, the first time I saw it, my first thought was, "How the hell did you change? Why in the world would you ever have changed that movie into what we got?"
Dude, I don't. Well, look again. From a corporate standpoint, they got the guy who made 2 Avengers movies.
Exactly.
So there was one person in Hollywood to hire to do this, and they did not. They wanted to have the feel of the Avengers films. They didn't understand what they could have. They just didn't get it. They lost faith in Zack Snyder, and because they lost faith because of their own bad decisions. Let's cut Batman v Superman. Let's make it a little less coherent. If they had, we can't release a 3-hour movie. If they had released the ultimate cut, that movie would have made $1 billion. And I'm convinced of that.
Easily.
I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, because wasn't it over 900 million as it was?
Yes. But the problem is they spent something like 450 million on the making of the movie and the marketing. So it needed to make over $1 billion. But they made this mistake thinking, well, we're going to cut it down. I mean, no, you have a Batman Superman movie. It could have been 4 fucking hours long and people would have sat and watched all of that shit. Because who doesn't want to see that?
Exactly.
I mean, you could have added a half an hour of Wonder Woman in that movie and it would have been, people would have watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. But they don't get it. Everyone's scared for their jobs. The problem is in Hollywood, especially, I mean, I began my career working at Warner Brothers. I worked in feature production. And the idea is you cannot say everybody in Hollywood works, it's fear-based, because if you make a mistake, if you say yes and the wrong thing happens and it doesn't make money, your whole career, everyone's worried that your career will be tainted. And so there's not a lot of visionaries at the studio level because they can't afford to be visionaries. But look what happens when you find someone like Kevin Feige, Kevin Feige's he made 13 movies that had varying degrees of success. He knows what works. There was not anybody at Warner Brothers at the corporate studio level that knew the answers. There's nobody that would bet on it. And everything is out of fear. Oh, you can't have a movie that's this long. Well, sure you can. Lord of the Rings proved that,
Exactly.
And yet you've got Batman v Superman. Well, we have to make it 2.5 hours. Why can't it be as long as it should be? Why does it have to be? You're imposing a limit on your movie that is a limit based on movies that aren't that film. You should always make decisions about your movie based on the movie itself, never about what other movies like it have done, because that doesn't make any sense. No one had ever made a Batman v Superman movie before. So to base your decisions on how long should this movie be, well, you shouldn't, unless there was another Batman v Superman movie before. That's the only thing you could possibly look to. You can't sit there and say, well, this movie was this long. So no, you don't know. But if you had somebody at the corporate level that actually knew, like a Kevin Feige, who had the power because he's made 23 movies with an average box office of $1 billion of film, if you average out all of those movies, they know what they're talking about. But there's nobody at Warner Brothers who actually, I mean, Walter Hamada Did you see him speak at DC Fandom?
Mm-hmm.
He's a smart dude. He gets it. And since he came in and his regime is there, that's why we're getting Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck in a fucking Flash movie. It's because of Walter Hamada. And you know what?
Badass.
Kevin Tsujihara's regime, none of those idiots would have ever greenlit a Flash movie with Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton. People would have been like, Michael Keaton, he's old.
Yeah.
Like the people at Disney, well, you can't make a movie about Han, Luke, Leia. They're old. Han Solo's like in his 70s. Who wants to see that? Oh, I don't know. How about the people that like Clint Eastwood when he was 70 and Unforgiven? How about that?
Yeah, remember that?
Come on,
Yeah,
man.
how about it?
Seriously. Robert, thank you so much for being here. This was such a great stream to
That was
have you
awesome,
on here. Same with you, Zod. It's just both of you guys
Awesome
going.
as always. This is great.
Oh.
Yes.
And so let's go around the
thanks for
horn
having
real
me.
quick.
Thank you, Robert.
Of course. And let's go around the horn real quick. Robert, where can they find you?
Corner.
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. You can find me on Twitter at Burnett RM, and of course on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
Okay, and then Zod, where can they find you?
You can find me Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Zod Rider Show on psn-radio.com. You can find me at Zod Rider on Twitter, and you can find me on Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on The Four Nerds.
Yep.
And Dawson, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on my YouTube channel, Nerdy in Many Ways. We talk about all things nerdy of any kind, really. Do a lot of cool stuff. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nimwa32, NIMW32. And you can also check me out on Vero under the name Dawson Weidrich. And yeah, thanks for having me, Andre.
Of course. And Anthony, where can they find you?
Wait. No Four Nerds for you, Dawson?
You did it.
I did it.
You're
I
part
did
of
it.
The Four Nerds.
I am part of Four Nerds.
Yeah, he always forgets to plug his own show. It's all right.
He did. Hey, he did it. Then you put it up.
You had three opportunities to plug your show. You had it. Now Anthony's probably gonna do it on his own. I'm just saying.
Get off me.
All right,
This is my back. Get off it.
You can find me on all forms of social media at 2279ACS. You can find me on YouTube. Just search for the ACS Universe, and you'll find my content there. And also on Thursdays at 7:30
Oh my
p.m.
gosh.
Eastern time. Shut up, Dawson. You can find me on Four Nerds with the rest of these other two gentlemen down here at the bottom, and Ryan, who's not here, having some bad takes. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yes.
Yes. And guys, I will be back on Friday night for the Man of Steel watch party on the Nickatina Show's Midnight Run. And we'll be back Sunday night when we have Taylor Murphy, Matt from Lightcast, and TJ Bravo of The Cultured Nerd will be here as well, along with ACS Universe. And we might be getting an appearance from Dawson from Nerdy in Many Ways. We'll see how his schedule opens out. But we'll see you guys Sunday night.
Yes.
I know. Well, anything could change, you know. But Robert, like I said before, thank you so much for coming on here. This has
Thanks
been
for asking me. This was a blast.
great. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was great to talk with you again.
Awesome.
Well, you know, coming on these streams, I don't get to when I do my own show, I'm talking into a camera.
Right.
So I don't, I get no feedback, and I don't get to like completely nerd out about whether it's action figures or movies because nobody, I don't have anybody that I sat there and I spent like an hour posing these samurai figures. You know, I took a picture and I put it on Instagram. I'm like, I finally got him right. I'm like, isn't this awesome? But who's going to come back and go, yeah, that's awesome. Like nobody. Like,
yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. And I go and I
That is awesome.
I tell my girlfriend, I'm like, Elizabeth, look at this picture. And she's like, she doesn't know what it is. I'm like, but this is all my 7 samurai figures. I took them out. Nobody cares.
That's how I feel with my wife. Like the other day, I finally got a Dark Knight Returns figure that I have right here, and I've been looking for one forever that I could actually get and afford. And I brought it home. I was like, honey, check this out. This is really cool. Been looking for this forever. It's my favorite Batman story. And she's like, cool.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I remember with my mom. It must have been like with my mom when I would get something. I'm like when I came down and was trying to tell her about Watchmen 11, and she's like, And my mom knows that she knows nothing about what I'm talking about. I might as well be speaking a foreign language, but she knows it matters to me. So she's like, but then I know when she goes, she has no idea what I'm talking about. And she's just trying to appease me. And I appreciate these that she's trying to appease me because she loves me. But then I don't get the response, that I want. So I kind of walk away. So I've had to learn over a lifetime that no one's going to care about these samurai action figures set up this way but me. But nowadays I can put them on Instagram and some people go, that's amazing, because they know. They know.
Yeah.
They know.
I get my validation through social media like everybody else.
Jesse, that's not nice. Unsubscribe to Nickatina Show. No way. Oh, I'm kidding. Subscribe to everyone here. Very nice. That was very nice of you.
Good.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys again Friday night for the Man of Steel watch party. Like I said 3 or 4 times already. Rob, thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
Awesome.
Let's do it again.
Yes.
And we'll do it again.
Yes.
And Nerdy, Zod Rider, thank you so much for being here as well. And everyone here. Oh, sorry. Everyone here in the chat. I will see you next time.